Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it is my pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but all those others who tune in to this programme throughout the world. And it's also my pleasure to welcome 4 outstanding individual and talented players of the game. And we welcome, first of all, with great pleasure, that master of comic invention and witty rapport and response that is Paul Merton, and someone who's equally at home in improvised comedy, that's Julian Clary, and also somebody who's also clever at ad hoc spontaneous humour, Tony Hawks, and also someone of a different generation, but equally at home in improvised humour, that is Clement Freud. And would you please welcome all 4 of them? As usual, I am going to ask them to speak on a subject that I give them, and they will try and do that if they can without hesitation, repetition, or deviating from the subject on the card in front of me. Beside me sits Claire Bartlett, who's going to help me keep the score, and she'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular recording of Just a Minute is coming from Pois in that beautiful county of Cornwall, and we are part of the Daphne du Maurier Festival here in this tented village in Pois, and we have in front of us a really hyped-up festival Cornish audience who are dying for us to start the show. So let us begin with Paul Merton. Paul, the subject is weather forecasts. Tell us something about weather forecasts in just a minute, starting now.
The weather forecasts in this country are always reliable. If they say it will rain, the sun will shine. And vice versa. Maybe that's being unfair to the meteorological office because it is a very difficult science. It's not an art. It isn't perhaps something that we could all do or would want to be able...
Tony Hawks, you challenge.
I think there was a hesitation.
Yes,
there.
it was. He stumbled over his words. We call that hesitation. So, Tony, you have a correct challenge. You get a point for that, and you take over the subject, which is weather forecasts, and there are 39 seconds starting now.
I should have listened to the weather forecast last night because I decided to come down to Pois very early this morning to enjoy the sunshine. How wrong I was. I got here, the clouds opened, and I was wet through by mid-afternoon. The weather forecasts are...
Paul, Merton challenge.
Well, I don't... Deviate, do clouds open? They part, don't they? But the clouds don't...
They did this afternoon, I think.
I think, Paul, colloquially speaking, people do talk about clouds opening and shedding their water, yes. I think it's a colloquial phrase people use, and I think it would be unfair to take it away from Tony on that challenge. So, Tony, an incorrect challenge. You get a point for that, of course. You keep the subject. 22 seconds available, starting now.
I like to think of myself as being something of an amateur weather forecaster. For instance, I predict tomorrow will be snowy in the morning, followed by a thunderstorm.
Clement Freud challenge.
Repetition of morning.
Yes.
Correct.
Excuse me, audience, it is part of the game. He's got a correct challenge, a point for that, Clement. 11 seconds, weather forecasts starting now.
It is becoming increasingly difficult now that you no longer have entrails inside chickens. But in olden days...
Do chickens no longer have entrails? It's some sort of... This is some genetic modification?
As far as I'm concerned, chickens do have entrails.
They do. It's deviation to say they haven't.
It is deviation,
yeah,
but you needn't look like that. I'm afraid that...
I think, in fairness, weather forecasters never looked at entrails inside chickens. And it is the shop-bought chickens which no longer have entrails in them.
I don't say there's any connection with weather forecasts, so on that score as well. No, you tried to justify it, and you nearly succeeded, but not quite. So
it's nice to have a little chat about entrails, though, isn't it?
Paul, correct challenge. You have 3 seconds left. Weather forecasts starting now.
The clouds opened up.
Clement challenge.
We've had clouds.
No, it was Tony who talked about clouds.
I never mentioned clouds.
You always mention it.
No, tonight's an exception.
No. Paul, an incorrect challenge. Another point to you in 2 seconds. Weather forecast starting now.
Fog, mist, these are the enemies of the fishermen.
Whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. Paul Merton on that occasion, he's taken the lead ahead of Tony Hawks and Clement Freud in that order. And Tony Hawks, will you take the next round? The subject is my favourite school teacher. Tell us something about him or her in this game, starting now.
The trouble with school is that they don't really teach you anything that's going to be useful to you later in life. For instance, when I was at school, I had to do pottery, and since leaving school, I haven't had one occasion when I've had to make a pot, even in an emergency. But fortunately, my favourite teacher at school did interest me greatly. His name was Mr. Akers, and he taught me at Brighton Hove and Sussex Grammar School for boys. He took history, and he used to turn up with a guitar and sing songs about that subject. At the Board of Trade, Mr. Huskisson made reductions in the rate of duty on many raw materials and certain goods ready for sale. And he relaxed the Navigation Acts and made reciprocity treaties and it went on. And I was able to just sing these little ditties in my examinations, and everyone thought I was so intelligent. And I'm so grateful to him for that. The art teacher, on the other hand, wasn't really my favourite, although in a way he was for many of the other children in the school, thus making him still relevant to talk around.
Well done! This is such a difficult game. It is very rare that someone goes for the full 60 seconds, and you did it with style and panache, and you didn't hesitate, repeat yourself, or deviate. And when that happens, he gets a point for speaking when the whistle went, and also a bonus point for not being interrupted. But you're still in second place. Well, that was me making a joke. But you're only 1 point behind Paul Merton, and Clement, your turn to begin. The subject is Petit Pois. Tell us something about Petit Pois in this game, starting now.
Petit pois is a French word, so I
Tony, challenge.
It's two French words.
Right.
That is a correct challenge. So, yep. Tony, we're going to hear from you again very rapidly. And you have 56 seconds to tell us something about Petit Pois, starting now.
Pois is a French word. And if you tack the other one, Petit, in front of it, you end up with Petit Pois. I once had a Grand Pois of my own, which I used to put on a plate, and people wouldn't eat it because they said it's too large. Can't you go and get a Petit one? And so I did. I scurried off to the back of the house where I kept all the Petit Pois in a large basin, marked.
Clement, challenge.
Repetition of large.
You had large once before.
I thought I had grand, didn't I?
No.
Did I?
And so 32 seconds, Clement. You have Petit Pois back, and you start now.
Alors il faut parler en français parce que le sujet était Petit Pois. Je vous dirais que Petit Pois...
Julian, challenge.
Well, he did an which I know is very French, but it could be construed as hesitation.
Yes, it was a French though. It wasn't an in English, which we would interpret that. Let's see if we can go a bit further and see what happens. So, Clement, you didn't within the context of English. It was a French quand je t'oublie vite son cover. Non, continuez. Continuez avec le sujet. Maintenant, le sujet est le Petit Pois. Il y a quelques secondes, 23 secondes, vous commencez maintenant. Paul.
I don't know the French for hesitation. Otherwise I would have said it.
Right. You have the subject, though. 22 seconds, Petit Pois, starting now.
Well, they're very small peas.
Tony, challenge.
Obviously, he knew nothing more about Petit Pois. So I can get back to my brilliant basin of Petit Pois at the back of my house story.
And I'd save it. Can I let you know there's 20 seconds and you start now.
Everyone was gathered round my...
Paul, challenge.
Repetition of everyone.
No, I don't think everyone. No. I think you're bluffing.
Are you sure?
I'm sure. You didn't say everyone before. No.
Okay.
No. Right. 18 seconds. Petit Pois starting now.
The clouds opened. They said, look out, the Petit Pois will get wet. And so I pushed...
Clement, challenge.
He's mentioned wet before.
Not in this round. When he was talking about the clouds, he mentioned getting wet. He certainly mentioned wet, but not in this round. My God, he talks a lot, but in the show. But, 13 seconds, still Petit Pois with you, Tony, starting now.
And then my favourite teacher came in. He said, give me some of those. They look delish.
Paul challenge.
Deviation.
Why?
Well, Tony said it was a brilliant story.
Oh, listen,
I've been patiently sitting here.
it's a brilliant story when it's uninterrupted.
Really?
Yeah. I'll tell it to you after.
Right, I'll tell you what we'll do. Give Paul a bonus point because we enjoy the inventiveness of his challenge, but you get a point because you interrupted Tony. It's still Petit Pois, and you have 8 seconds left starting now.
The restaurant was dark, but everybody knew that Petit...
Julian challenged.
Everybody, repetition?
Yeah.
Yes, everybody.
Well, hang on, the last argument was over everyone, if you remember. Sorry to be picky.
Everybody was everybody.
I mean, I may have said everybody about 15 minutes ago. I probably did.
It was everybody. Okay. I'm sorry. No, it wasn't everyone. It was everybody. 5 seconds with you now, Julian, on Petit Pois, starting now.
Petit Pois are little peas ripped from their mother's breast, and we enjoy them.
Paul challenge.
Well, I don't know. Peas don't really have breasts, do they? A mother pea doesn't have a breast, does it?
They don't. They're not ripped from anybody's breast. They come from the pod.
That's right.
But I was speaking metaphorically. They're plucked before they're ready. They're too young to be eaten. It's like eating suckling pig.
You are justifying it now very cleverly, but I don't think you made that clear when you started, and I think if you're going to be as subtle as that. What?
I don't think Nicholas likes me.
Julian, I love you very much, so I give you the benefit of the doubt. Right, and you have 1 second on Petit Pois, starting now.
We eat them because...
Vegetation.
I buzzed for deviation of you loving Julian very much.
You can love your fellow human beings. I love a lot of people.
Yeah.
And Julian happens to be one of them. Extremely lovable young man.
Yeah.
And you've got half a second on Petit Pois, starting now.
I think...
So Julian Clary got points in the round, including 1 for speaking as the whistle went, and he's leapt forward. He's overtaken Clement Freud, but he is trailing Paul Merton and Tony Hawkes, who's now in the lead. And Julian, it's your turn to begin. The subject is avoiding income tax. I don't know why they laugh in Cornwall about that. There are 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
I think avoiding income tax is a terrible thing to do. I would happily pay more than I already do. Perhaps the most notable entertainer who avoided his own particular tax was Ken Dodd. But he's recovered from that, and the public still love him. It's one of those crimes that don't seem to be viewed too suspiciously by people in general. But I think it's wicked and...
Tony challenged.
I think repetition of think.
Yes, you were thinking a bit too much.
I was.
Yes.
I was thinking about how you don't like me.
I thought I'd established it was quite the reverse, but it doesn't matter. 36 seconds with you, Tony, on avoiding income tax, starting now.
The best way of avoiding income tax is to avoid income, which is why working for just a minute is a tremendous idea. However, I have to say it's a great pleasure. I am with very much Julian's viewpoint that avoiding income tax is immoral, and generally speaking, people do get away with it too often, and I can't be bothered to go on. Suddenly turning into a political speech, for goodness sake.
I'll vote for you, I'll vote.
You'll vote for me, will you?
Yes, Clement,
I'm sorry.
Deviation.
Deviation, yes.
Yes,
I know what you're going to say.
it was
yes.
rubbish.
What is a deviation?
He said, I can't go on with this.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see. It was a subtle challenge instead of hesitation. Right. So, you have the subject, Clement. You have 14 seconds on avoiding income tax, starting now.
Perhaps the very best way is to move and keep moving. Also, change your name and continue so to do. Smith, Jones, Robin...
Tony challenge.
Just in the interest of justice, I don't think he should go on, otherwise... people are going to write it down and they're going to do it.
We give you a bonus point because we enjoyed what you said, but Clement was interrupted, so he gets a point for being interrupted. He keeps the subject, and he has 4 seconds on avoiding income tax, starting now.
Not known at this address is an excellent thing to put on brown envelopes.
Clement Freud speaking as the whistle went again. That's the point. He's now equal in the lead with Julian Clary, and they're trailing the other two. And Tony Hawkes is now in the lead, 1 ahead of Paul Merton. I was surprised that nobody in that round actually challenged on the subject, because you all talked about avoiding income tax, which actually is not illegal. It's evading income tax, which is illegal. And Tony, it's your turn to begin. Tony, the subject is caravans. I thought that might strike a chord in Cornwall. Caravans. That is one of the things they see throughout the summer. But talk on the subject, Tony. 60 seconds starting now.
I've got a sticker in the back of my car which says, if you can read this, someone's nicked my caravan. Now, I don't actually have a caravan myself. My plan is to get a property, or even a property.
So, Julian, you challenge first.
Well, property, does that come as a deviation?
Either hesitation or deviation from English as we normally speak it. Julian, you have 46 seconds. You have caravans and you start now.
Caravans are what common people use to go on holiday with. I saw some as I drove into Pois, and they were parked by the side of the road with net curtains in, and I thought, how ridiculous. Who do they think they are? And sometimes they make little white wicker fences all the way round, marking off their property like some mongrel dog. I think they should be banned. They're very ugly and unsightly things, and goodness knows what conversation goes on inside them. Yeah, oh, God blimey, look at that lovely house there. If only we had a bit of money. No, I'm sorry, they're very vulgar, and they're usually white, and sometimes little chintzy things. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Well, you certainly struck a chord there, Julian. Yes, but you challenged first, Paul.
Yeah, it was two sorries.
Yes, there were two sorries, and... that is the game. And if we allowed everybody just to indulge themselves so that you can have a more pleasure, well, I'm delighted. Well, pleasure yourselves, but let us play the game. All right. There are 5 seconds for you on caravans, Paul, starting now.
I went on a caravan holiday when I was about 16 years old. It was a static affair, not...
Julian challenged.
How common?
Very interesting. Half the audience clapped and the other half booed when you said that. Anyway, Julian, we loved the interruption and the remarks, so you get a bonus point for that because of the response it had from the audience. But Paul gets a point for being interrupted, and he keeps the subject. And there's half a second to go. Caravan starting now.
My mother and father...
Well, Paul Merton was then speaking as the whistle went and gained that extra point. And he's now just gone ahead of Tony Hawkes, who was in the lead, and the other two are trailing a little. And Clement, Freud, it's your turn to begin. And the subject now is manners. Tell us something about manners in this game, starting now.
As most people in Cornwall will know, Manners is the family name of the Duke of Rutland. I think I'll leave it there. I think that's fine.
Well, you certainly got an amazing response. And I've given out some bonus points to others, so give one to Clement Freud for that. But Tony, you challenge first.
Well, he was so surprised by his own knowledge that he was unable to carry on, and he stopped. We call that a hesitation in the business.
We call it in just a minute a definite hesitation.
Yes.
And you have the subject, and you have 50 seconds on manners starting now.
I'm intrigued by the good manners which people have to do at dinner parties. Very often you have the food and people say, delicious. I prefer...
Paul challenge.
It's very picky, but there were two halves. Have to do, manners
yes,
have to...
I'm afraid it's a tough challenge, but it's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it's very difficult to join things together without saying that.
You haven't actually endeared yourself to the audience with the challenge, Paul. But,
well, I can withdraw the challenge. If...
No, it's correct. So I have to be fair within the rules of just a minute, and you have 41 seconds. Tell us something about manners starting now.
In a caravan, manners are very important. If one has had a full dinner, you must always open the window. This isn't too easy sometimes in some of these contrivances that you find yourself on holiday, but generally speaking, the effort is well worthwhile. Tony mentioned the manners that people have at dinner parties, and perhaps there are...
Tony challenge.
I'm sure he's repeated something. In the course of joining up all that, he must have repeated something. It's for you to go through it, Nicholas, and work out what it was.
I've done a quick rerun through my mind. I've gone a quick retape from the unconscious. I brought it forward to the conscious, and he did not repeat anything.
Oh, OK, fair enough.
So, and when you listen to the repeats of the show, I think you'll see I'm right. Paul, 22 seconds on manners starting now.
Pass the port from the left is something I've never understood. Why does it have to go that way?
Clement Freud challenge.
Deviation, you pass the port to the left.
That's right, not from.
From the left?
To the left.
Yes.
I got the point.
Don't know the same thing.
Yes.
So I don't know how I judge this.
Let's have a fight.
No. I'm going to leave it to the superior judgment of the
Comes
audience.
from the right and is passed to the left.
The audience have agreed that you are right, Clement. So you have a point, you have the subject, you have 15 seconds, manners starting now.
If you have a plate full of food and you leave a little bit on a side of whatever you're eating from, it is called...
Oh.
Well, there was a hesitation there.
So, Paul, you got the subject back. 6 seconds, manners starting now.
How dare you fart before my wife? I didn't know it was her turn.
Julian!
I don't know why I buzzed, really, because it wasn't a deviation at all.
Fortunately for Paul, he was interrupted, so he's got 1 second more to tell us about manners starting now.
Perhaps the most important...
So Paul Merton, again speaking as the whistle went, has increased his lead at the end of the round. In fact, he has a considerable number of points, and so has Tony Hawks in second place, and the other two have some but not as many. And Paul, it's your turn to begin. The subject is the perfect murder. Tell us something about the perfect murder in just a minute, starting now.
The idea of the perfect murder is that you should carry out such a crime and not be found out. Alfred Hitchcock made many films based on that theme. Perhaps his most successful was called Strangers on a Train. The idea in that particular movie was that two people should murder individuals they'd never met. So they would, in fact, each murder the other person's victim.
Tony, challenge.
Repetition of person?
Correct, Tony, and you have 36 seconds of the perfect murder starting now.
In the world of comedy, we often talk about dying on stage if we're not doing very well, but also we say, I murdered them out there last night if we go down a storm.
Clement Freud challenge.
3 ifs.
I'll give it to you on 3 ifs, but let's restrain ourselves on the little tiny words. So, Clement, a point to you in the perfect murder, and 25 seconds starting now.
The perfect murder is when the victim is totally, thoroughly dead, as opposed to the imperfect murder, where the body has a leg or an arm still flailing about, still...
I love it when they create images like that, which ripple through the audience. But, Julian, you challenge.
Well, if the leg or the arm is flaying about, then they're not murdered, are they?
That's an imperfect murder.
That's an imperfect murder. Yeah. No, but this is the perfect murder.
Oh.
And so it is a subject. So the other case, it's deviation. And it's 11 seconds, the perfect murder starting now.
The perfect murder I would consider probable is one in which the body can never be found. So therefore, you must dig a large hole, and you must remember to take...
Clement Freud challenge.
2 musts.
Yes, you did say must twice, I'm afraid. Yes. So, Clement, you're back in there with a shout with 2 seconds to go. The perfect murder starting now.
Hitchcock was a great man for the perfect murder.
So, Paul Merton's still in the lead, then is Tony Hawks, and then Clement Freud is in third place now, having gained points in the round, and 1 for speaking as the whistle went, and then Julian Clary. And Julian, it's your turn to begin. Now, we know that you love dogs. I don't know if it's been chosen especially for you. Teaching an old dog new tricks. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but it's not true. Fanny the Wonder Dog was 19 when she expired, and for the last 5 years of her life she was deaf. And I managed to teach her sign language so that she could see where I was, and if you held your arms out thus, that meant I'm over here. If you held your arm out like that...
Clement Freud challenge.
2 arms.
There were too many arms, I'm afraid. But
Wasn't it arms and arm?
No.
I think it was plural, both.
It doesn't really... Mind you, it doesn't really qualify as a new trick, does it? Spotting somebody with their arms out.
If the dog is blind.
Julian, you have the benefit of the doubt. You have this audience on your side. You have 38 seconds available on teaching an old dog new tricks starting now.
Eventually, Fanny died.
Paul, challenge.
I didn't think I'd be saying this tonight, but repetition of Fanny.
That was his dog, yes, so...
Did you say Fanny's before?
Go on, give Clement another bonus point. He's working hard for them. But Paul gets a point for a correct challenge. And you got the subject of Fanny, and... I'm so sorry. It gets you in your brain sometimes, and you got 36 seconds teaching an old dog new tricks starting now.
I had a Labrador who was 15 years old, and I taught it to play the trumpet. And what a fantastic noise it got out of this instrument. You wouldn't think it possible. It was the Humphrey Littleton of the K9 world. No sooner would it walk into a room and the excited visitor would say, "Give us a tune, Arnold." That happened to be its name. A strange name, perhaps.
Clement, your light came on factually first. You have 17 seconds on teaching an old dog new tricks starting now.
We had a 16-year-old standard poodle called Polly, whom we taught to do the 3-card trick, which was extremely difficult because he was left-handed.
Oh, Tony.
Well, what's this dog doing with hands? Surely paws would be...
Deviation on every count, yes, but there we are. So, yes, but 5 seconds, teaching an old dog new tricks starting now.
We had a 17-year-old Dachshund that we taught to do downhill skiing, and it was so impressive. You would see him at the...
Well, what an hysterical round. My goodness me, he's difficult to keep a straight face. And let me give you the final situation. Julian only just finished in 4th place. He was a few points behind... Another please. Clement Freud was then in 3rd place. And Tony Hawkes did extremely well. He's leading for quite a long time. He was in 2nd place. But with 22 points, which is a very high score in this game, out in the lead was Paul Merton, to say, "Paul, you are the winner this week." So it only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 delightful players of the game, Paul Merton, Julian Clary, Tony Hawkes and Clement Freud. Also thank Claire Bartlett for helping me with the score and blowing her whistle so elegantly. And we thank our producer and director, that is Claire Jones. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this game, which we all love playing. And we are very grateful to this lovely Cornish audience here. From our panel and from me, Nicholas Parsons, thank you. Tune in the next time we play Just a Minute. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and you have just been listening to an award-winning Just a Minute from July 2002. Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. You're more than kind. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it is my infinite pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country but throughout the world, but also to welcome to the show this week 4 talented and distinctive players of the game. Yes, you are right, and... It's a pleasure to welcome back the clever and sometimes surreal humour of Paul Merton, the provocative and sometimes outrageous humour of Graham Norton, the individual and sometimes sardonic humour of Clement Freud, and the charming and feminine humour of Liza Tarbuck. Would you please welcome all 4 of them? And as usual, I am going to ask them to speak, if they can, for just a minute or even less on the subject that I give them. They will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviating from the subject. Beside me normally sits the elegant Janet Staplehurst, but unfortunately can't be with us this week. So instead of her, we have the lovely Claire Bartlett, who's going to help me keep the score. She'll blow Janet's whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Radio Theatre, which is in the heart of Broadcasting House, which is at the very heart of everything which is best in British broadcasting. And in front of us, we have a really hearty, fine British audience ready to cheer us on our way as we start the show this week with Graham. The subject, discos. Tell us something about discos in this game, starting now.
Tragically, I do still go to discos, and I stand in the middle of the dance floor while young people gather and chant "Taxi for Mr. Mutton." It is an appalling spectacle to see. I weep at the sight of myself when sober. And of course, that's the key with discos.
Paul Merton challenge.
Hesitation.
No, I don't think so. No.
Are you sure?
I'm quite sure. I disagree with the challenge, so Graham, you have another point. You keep the subject, 39 seconds available. Discos starting now.
Forget the dangers of drunk driving. Where are the signs warning us about the dangers of don't drink?
Paul challenge. Yes.
I'm loving this crowd.
Two dangers.
Yes, Paul, the correct challenge. You have discos, you have 32 seconds, and your time starts now.
Unlike Graham, I've never really been much of a disco fan. I've always wanted to be in a situation where I can talk. I don't like loud music particularly. I've never cared for dancing, so that kind of does rule out the discotheque. I know somebody, when I was much younger, who used to love going to these things, and he would tell me all about them. He'd say you'd get there about 7:30.
Clement Freud challenge.
It was there.
Yes, you've been there before.
Third.
I don't know if you look... It was
Not particularly impressed by that challenge.
No.
Very small word.
Yes, but it was a correct challenge, so I have to be fair within the rules of just a minute. Say, Clement, you have another point, and you have the subject, and you have 10 seconds, and it is discos, and it is starting now.
10 seconds is about long enough to throw discos 45 metres.
Paul challenge.
Well, that was a hesitation.
Yes, it was. I give you the benefit of the doubt. So I balance it out. I have to make discretion. It was a tough challenge against Paul, so Paul gets the benefit of the doubt. He gets it back again. I think that's fair. It's justice. I have to try and see it. So I have to try and balance things. Paul, 4 seconds. Discos with you, starting now.
Donna Summer was known as the queen of the disco in the 1970s.
Clement challenge just before that.
I just wanted to balance it out.
Well, what I will do then is, as I like to do on these occasions, if someone gives a clever interruption like that, we give you a bonus point, Clement, because they enjoyed your comment and reaction.
But one for when the whistle went.
No. Paul had the subject when the whistle went, so he gets a point for being interrupted, and also one for speaking the whistle went, so he gets 2 points. Liza, your turn to begin. The subject, a certain age. What a nice subject. Tell us something about it in just a minute, starting now.
When memorying over your past life, it might be that you'd occur to yourself to... Do you know what? I knew I should have broken myself in earlier with a comment. Memorying? What do I mean?
Is that the first time you've spoken today?
It is. I walked the dog at 2 and I haven't seen a soul.
This is what happens. You've been talking all day probably, and suddenly when you have to talk under these rules, it all goes to
It's a
pieces.
nightmare for me.
But the audience love you. The way your few words in...
Thank you so much.
Just to say 4 words and absolutely have the audience embrace you like that, I think is lovely. But you were challenged, and it was a correct challenge. Graham Norton, it was you. You have a certain age, and you have 53 seconds starting now.
I think 11 is quite a certain age, because you're certain you'll be happy, fall in love. No one's told you you'll have hair on your back, and last Saturday you might stick a Q-tip in one ear and suddenly be deaf in both. I don't understand myself, but my voice is echoing around my skull. Oh, I'm rambling. rambling now. Still, a certain age could also be a lady of a certain age. Do you see? I hope you're following this. It's fascinating. Get a pen, quickly. I've only got another few seconds to go.
Clement Freud is challenged.
No, he's got longer than that.
We're going to give him another bonus point because he got a round of applause. It's very difficult to judge in these cases. Clement, did you have a challenge within the rules of just a minute, though? No, obviously not. So, you have another point, Graham.
Do I? Good.
Yes.
I don't understand it.
And you have 23 seconds, a certain age, starting now.
A certain age, or un certain âge, as they say in the French. I believe that was a very good film, probably made by François Truffaut or some such clever clogs in that country. I watched it in university, perhaps, reading the subtitles all the while, going blind through cider. I sometimes think on about a certain...
Paul challenge just before.
It's good!
Paul, you got in with half a second. What is the challenge?
Well, I thought it was a sort of stumbling hesitation there.
It was stumbling a lot. I don't know about the hesitation. He stumbled. Listen, I gave it your favour last time on the hesitation. This time I must give the benefit of the doubt to Paul and say, Paul, we give you hesitation, and you have half a second, a certain age, starting now.
53.
Oh, no. No, there was no hesitation. So, Paul was speaking as a whistle wind, gained a point for that, and he has increased his lead over the other three. Right. And I won't say what the other situation is. Well, he's got twice as many as Graham and Clement and 8 times as many as Liza.
I can't think why.
Right. Clement Freud, your turn to begin, or we'd like you to take the next round. It's my favourite children's programme. And you have 60 seconds, Clement, starting now.
I am hugely opposed to favouring some children over others. And therefore, I would like not to speak about my favourite children's programme, but about my children's favourite programme.
Liza, you challenge.
He's hesitated for applause, which I just saw my in to increase
That's
my
right.
score.
He did. He tried to ride the laugh, which he thought was coming, and he didn't.
But it came.
It came.
I just
But in
sneaked
just
through
a
the
minute,
back
you
door.
have to try and go through your laughs, what we call riding your laugh, and I call that hesitation, yes. And you could have had him for pomposity as well, but...
But he's being grammatically correct, aren't you, Clement?
He is.
Are we allowed to challenge for pomposity?
No.
Oh, please.
But I thought he might get a laugh, so I said it.
Oh, I see.
Right. And, Lisa, you have the subject of my favourite children's programme, and 43 seconds starting now.
When I was a child, I used to enjoy watching The Magic Roundabout. As I got older, unfortunately, I found out that there were various rumours connected with each character, which Phila Delore has actually said that aren't true.
Graham Jones, yes.
Oh, is that horrible of me? But you did say aren't.
Yeah,
I
no.
couldn't pretend I didn't hear
Hands
that.
up, I can't speak. Do you know what happened today? I've had
It's
the
very
inside of my
difficult.
mouth made over with felt. It's a nightmare.
It's what
It
happens when you...
looks lovely.
It's what happens when you come on just a minute, Lisa. It is difficult. Right, it's my favourite children's programme. You have the subject now, Graham, and you have 29 seconds starting now.
My favourite children's programme, which growing up, of course, was Wanderly Wagon. Now, people living in Britain were deprived of this treat, nay, gem of a show. The whole point of the thing was that it was in a caravan, which was wonderful, and people travelled around in it.
Clement challenge.
There was hesitation.
I think it was definitely hesitation. More than hesitation.
I'm not making it up.
But you were taking the audience with you. They were in that caravan and there I could see it in their faces. Right. Clement, the subject is, on the card, my favourite children's programme. And you have 3 seconds, very clever. Starting now.
Prime Minister's question time.
Paul challenge.
Well, deviation.
Why?
It's not a children's programme. Prime Minister's question time.
Well, it depends on your mentality, I suppose.
What, you think children sit down and watch
but
Prime
let's
Minister's
be
question
fair within the rules of just a
My
minute.
children's favourite programme.
Yes, he...
Is Prime Minister's question time?
Yeah, they love it.
Yes. I think, Paul, on every count, he's justified it. So it gets a point for being interrupted. He gets a point for speaking when the whistle went.
What is it they like about it the best, do you think? Is it the theme music?
And, yes, the theme music. Right, there we are. So at the end of that round, Clement Freud has moved forward. He's now 1 point behind Paul Merton, followed by Graham Norton and Liza Tarbuck in that order. And whose turn is it to begin? It is Paul Merton. Back with you. Paul, Cleopatra's Needle. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
Well, she wanted to be the Empress of Rome, and it always annoyed her that she wasn't. She tried to have it off with Mark Antony, and that was no good, and Julius Caesar, and people used to say to her, listen, Cleopatra, it doesn't matter if you don't become what you want to be. She said, it's very important to me. I'm very.
And Liza, you got in first on the...
Very, yeah.
Very. Cleopatra's Needle is with you, Liza, and you have 43 seconds starting now.
Cleopatra's Needle lodges itself on the embankment, and interestingly enough, there are some chunks out of it which apparently are from shrapnel, from London being... London.
Two froms.
Two froms, thank the Lord.
That's
I thought it was worse.
Yeah, well,
I did very...
It was a tough one. You could criticise for the away being a tough challenge. From is even tougher, isn't it? Anyway, Paul, correct. 33 seconds. Tell us more about Cleopatra's Needle starting now.
Not many people know it's made out of donuts and jelly, and it's a marvellous invention that was first brought to our attention many years ago when it was sailed from Egypt by a man called Mr. Bishop. He was an individual, a gentleman if you like, who decided there was money to be made from exporting a marvellous sight from the other side of the world and bringing it across a couple of hemispheres and plonking it on the London embankment.
Liza, challenge.
Well, he's just talking rubbish. It's true.
No, he actually isn't talking rubbish.
But he said it was made of jelly and donuts.
You're
It
not...
might be rubbish to you, it's a career to me.
So you didn't make your challenge specific, so what is your challenge then?
Well, he said it was made of jelly and donuts,
Well,
which I ran with.
I thought you meant the other part about
I
it
am
being
slow
transported.
tonight. I think I've proved that.
I thought jelly and donuts is a correct challenge, but I thought you were challenging me on the fact that it was brought over here.
That was
from
ages
Greece.
ago.
By
I
Mr.
said that.
Bishop.
No, it
Mr.
was
Bishop.
brought over from Heliopolis. When
By Mr. Bishop.
Yeah.
In 18...
The guy had neighbours.
In
Was
18
it Emily Bishop's husband?
He went missing for a long time. They thought he'd drowned. He fell off the rocks.
In 18
That's what he was doing. He was transporting Cleopatra's Needle. It's a little unfair.
Everything else he said was correct except the jelly and donuts.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to have him for?
Yeah.
Right, okay, you've got it. 11 seconds. Cleopatra's Needle starting now. And he's Paul's challenge.
Hesitation.
She's still getting over the shock of the jelly and donuts. And the fact that it was brought over from Heliopolis, and she didn't know that before. She's still trying to digest that information. So I disagree, Lisa. You still have 10.5 seconds, and Cleopatra's Needle's with you starting now.
As a sewer.
Clement.
Deviation.
Why?
It didn't hesitate.
You get another point for a wicked challenge.
Thanks, lads.
And you have 9 seconds now. For Cleopatra's Needle starting now. And yes, Paul's challenge.
Repetition. She hesitated again.
Listen, this could go on for the rest of the show. I'm going to give you another point, Lisa, because I don't think you hesitated, but I'm going to say you have now 9.5 seconds, and I do want you to start promptly, because I don't want to adjudicate on the next challenge.
I'm under pressure.
Cleopatra's Needle starting now.
Cleopatra's Needle was made of steel. It was massive, and she used it to darn...
Graham challenge.
Well, it's not made of steel either, in fairness.
No, it's made of stone.
Oh, this particular sewing needle was.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
She used to darn Empress Tiberius's socks with it.
That's right.
She did. Thanks for that.
And a nasty hole in her ass.
To the monument.
Yeah. So you justified it, Lisa, and there are 5 seconds for you to continue with Cleopatra's Needle starting now.
Her embroidery was second to none. People would come all up the Tigris and...
Oh, yes, the challenge.
Bizarre zoological sexual practices.
I know, but it got a good
Tigress,
laugh. didn't it?
deviation.
Yes, a deviation, yes. The Nile, but...
Guilty.
I know, it doesn't matter, but it was a lovely thought. And Paul, you got in with half a second on Cleopatra's Needle starting now.
Cleopatra's Needle.
Right, so Paul Merton, speaking as the whistle went, has increased his lead, and Liza Tarbuck has leapt forward in that round. Right, and then Clement Freud and Graham Norton in that order. And Graham, your turn to begin. I'm sure this subject's been chosen specially for you. Celebrity weddings. Can you tell us something about celebrity weddings in just a minute, starting now?
Celebrities, unlike normal people, don't get married in church or registry offices, but rather in the pages of OK magazine. Now, I've only been to one celebrity wedding, but it was quite a corker. It was Liza Minnelli marrying David. Oh, my God, have you seen him? Guest. And I was astonished, because when I did see the photographs, I thought, oh, they used black and white film, but no, they were in colour. Just everyone looked like that. It was a wild old day, strangely moving. After the ceremony, oh, let's call it a freak show, we moved on to the reception. I can't believe these people fed me, and I'm now slacking them off like this, but never mind. I paid for my own flight. But, no, I always paid bad.
Oh, I'm glad we thought of that subject for you. They enjoy that, Graham. You challenged Paul.
A hesitation.
There was a hesitation, yes. I'm not surprised what he said, my friend. But anyway. But in spite of that, you enjoyed the wedding.
No, it was a lovely day out. Thanks, Liza. Thanks,
yes.
David. Wedding to follow. Oh, no, present.
Paul, you have 10 seconds. You tell us something about celebrity weddings starting now.
One of the first celebrity weddings was Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks. This was in the era when film stars suddenly became the most famous people in the world.
Clement Freud.
Famous.
Two
twice.
famous, yes. And Clement?
You're on your own, madam. Unless somebody's just let the air out of their girlfriend.
I think it was just your fan who came in, actually, yes. But Clement, you got in with half a second on celebrity weddings. Oh. Starting now.
Tom.
No, Lisa, you challenged.
I just was being a smart aleck. I went for hesitation.
I know, they did it to you.
I just fancied it. You know what I mean?
But it wasn't correct.
It wasn't
correct. Clement Freud.
Can I go on with what?
Yes, you only got a quarter of a second now, but you can go on.
I have a grandson called Tom who does celebrity weddings, and if anyone or any listener or anyone here...
I think it's much better that we play just a minute than discuss that. Clement Freud's family shenanigans. Right, Liza! It's your turn to begin. And the subject is things you should never do in a lift. And there are 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
Dry fry Lincolnshire sausages on a baby belling. Inflate a life raft. Urinate into balloons and then cut them with scissors over people that are standing there. Let rip with some hellish passage of wind and yodel. Sing a Cliff Richard song in a loud and unruly fashion. Invite over 8 very large people to pogo up and down as you're going to your journey or destination. Jam an elephant in the door. Rip somebody's clothes off and lick the person next to you. Cover my legs in jelly and call me Brenda. I am struggling, I don't mind telling you. Thank you.
Well, you went for 20... no, you went for 43 seconds.
Oh, you're joking.
Yes, very good.
Do you know what? I wish I wore a watch.
Yes, that's right. You went
I
for
really wish I wore a watch, but I don't. Consequently, one of you swines has removed this off me.
I think to go off in that list of things like that was absolutely brilliant in 43 seconds. But unfortunately, you were challenged. What is the challenge? Let's see if it's the correct one. It was a hesitation.
Yeah,
Well, she might have. But you got the round of applause. They showed how they appreciated your talent. Paul, the correct challenge. 17 seconds available. Things you should never do in a lift, starting now.
Plummet.
Clement challenge. Hesitation. Clement.
Well, that's all.
I know it's all.
There's nothing else. Everything else is perfectly permissible in a lift.
But in just a minute, if you pause, you lose the subject. Clement gone in first. 16 seconds, Clement. Things you should never do in a lift, starting now.
Trooping the colour.
Paul challenged.
Previously unexplored speech impediments. Rendering repetition.
It was a repetition of the letter T, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we give you the benefit of the doubt. Paul, you have 15 seconds. Things you should never do in a lift starting now.
One of the many things you should never do in a lift, particularly if it's crowded, is to ask the other people around you to join in with your rendition of one of the worst songs.
Clement Freud challenge.
Repetition of one.
Yes.
Ooh.
You had the word one before.
Ooh. Yes,
What one should do? Yes.
Yes.
What you one do in a lift?
Absolutely.
And, right. 4 seconds, Clement, you've got in. Things you should never do in a lift starting now.
I wouldn't recommend an eightsome reel.
Liza, you challenge.
Just a pause after real, which
That's
I
right,
think
yes.
is hesitation.
Yeah.
That's
You say
right.
I had
And
4 seconds. That took 5.
No, it took 4.5.
Ah.
Are you watching your clock there?
No.
You rogue.
His inner clock is not going the same pace as the one beside me. Half a second, Lisa. Things you should never do in a lift starting now.
Try and park.
At the end of that round, Lisa and Clement both got points. They move forward. Paul Merton's still in the lead. He's followed by Clement Freud and then Lisa Tarbuck and then Graham Norton in that order. And Clement, will you take the next subject, which is déjà vu? Will you tell us something about déjà vu in just a minute, starting now?
No.
Graham, you challenge.
Well, he just stopped. God love him.
Right, Clement gets a bonus point because he got a big laugh and the audience appreciated his jokes. If you're going to make jokes and you have to pause as a result of them, they deserve a bonus. But you've got a point because you've got a correct challenge, Graham, and you have 57 seconds. Déjà vu starting now.
Déjà vu, or déjà vu, as they say in the French, is an extraordinary expression. Roughly translated, it means summer television schedule. And other ways it can be used that I particularly like were in a horror film once where an American teen woman screaming after another bloody murder went, "Oh, it's like déjà vu all over again." I swear to you that's true, and they filmed it. Déjà vu, or as they say in French, déjà vu.
Clement Charlotte,
Repetition of French.
as they say in the French. You just said it before, yeah. And, Clement, you got in with 18 seconds on déjà vu starting now.
If you've seen 101 Dalmatians 93 times, it could be called déjà vu, meaning you have seen it before. I've said seen twice.
And Paul Charlotte.
Seen 3 times.
Right. And Paul, you got in with 8 seconds on déjà vu starting now.
Is that curious feeling when you're walking down a country lane in the middle of summer and suddenly, over a hedge, you hear the warbling of a thrush and you think to yourself...
Right, so we're moving now into the last round, and you're interested to hear what the state of play is with the points at this moment. Well, Clement Freud, with the other points in that round, is now actually taking the lead. He's one ahead of Paul Merton, but he's closely followed by Liza Tarbuck, and then Graham Norton is bringing up the rear. What a wonderful subject to finish this show on.
Yeah.
It's facial hair. And Graham... And I should explain to our listeners, somebody who's never sported facial hair before, which is Paul Merton, has come fully bewigged today. And,
No, I haven't.
No, bescrubbed.
I'm completely clean-shaven. Explain that visual image to the listeners at home.
Well, I said at the beginning of the show that sometimes Paul goes for surreal humour, and that was an example of it. In other words, in his mind, he's shaved, but to us, we can see he's got a beard and moustache. Right, have I answered your question? Graham, we'd like you to begin. It's your term, actually. Facial hair, 60 seconds, starting now.
Facial hair would be all well and good if it stayed where it's meant to be, in the general beard area. Sadly, mine has decided to start a trek up to examine my eyeballs, and is getting very close. Meanwhile, my previously foppish, boyish fringe seems fascinated by the back of my head and is fast making a trek there. Why must the hair be so curious? Why can't it stay where it is?
Paul Merton challenge.
Sorry, I was on a repetition of hair, but of course it's facial hair. Sorry.
So an incorrect challenge, because that's not correct. Hair is in the subject. You can repeat the phrase or individually the words. Still with you, Graham. Facial hair, 33 seconds starting now.
Facial hair can be very useful, particularly to doctors if they want to know what a bearded man's been eating over the last 24 hours. So much can be discovered. Little bits of egg yolk, yummy. Or perhaps the head of a lager.
Paul, challenge.
Rubbish of head. The back of the head before
the back of the head. Yes.
Il est un genius.
Yes.
Very good.
So, Paul, you've got in with 17 seconds on facial hair starting now.
As Nicholas pointed out earlier, I do have a beard and a moustache at the moment, and the reason why I grew them is because I can walk around the streets of Great Britain and not be recognised, which is very good because I owe an awful lot of people money. And there's a man who lives in Chichester.
I want to give them the final situation. And it's a very interesting and fair one. Graham Norton finished only just in 4th place. He was... I know, but it was so lovely having him on the show. And he was a few points behind Liza Tarbuck, and it was also lovely having her on the show. And she was 4 points behind 2 people who have fought it out neck and neck, and very apt and fairly, they finished up with the same number of points. So they are the joint winners, Paul Merton and Clement Freud. A round of applause. Thank you. It only remains for me to say thank you to our 4 outstanding players of the game, Paul Merton, Graham Norton, Liza Tarbuck and Clement Freud. I also thank Claire Bartlett for helping me with the score so admirably. First time she's done it, blow her whistle with panache. We also thank our producer-director, Claire Jones, for her contribution, and we are indebted to the creator of this game, Ian Messiter. And we are also very grateful to this lovely audience here in the Radio Theatre in London for their contribution, who've cheered us on our way. From them, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and our panel, thank you, and tune in the next time we play Just a Minute. Till then, goodbye. Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Hello. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it is my pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but throughout the world, but also to welcome to the program this week 4 exciting and diverse and original talents. We have somebody who actually is one of the original players of the game. He's come back with us again, way back 35 years ago, and that is Clement Freud. We also have one of this country's most original comedians, that is Eclair. We have somebody who was an original broadcaster and writer, that is Gyles Brandreth, and somebody who only did the show for the first time earlier this year, and he was so delightfully original, we've asked him back as well, and that is Neill. Will you please welcome all 4 of them? Thank you. And as usual, I am going to ask them to speak on a subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviating from that subject. Beside me sits Claire Bartlett, who's going to help me keep the score, and she will blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the beautiful Alhambra Theatre in that fine city of Bradford. And in front of us, we have a fine Yorkshire audience. Yes. Who are here to give us a real white rose welcome as we start the show with Jenny Eclair. And Jenny, the subject in front of me is traffic wardens. Tell us something about those misused individuals. 60 seconds, starting now.
Boo, traffic wardens, everybody hates them. I've never heard a soul say, actually, some of my best friends are traffic wardens. Can you imagine the shame of your child coming home and saying, actually, Mummy, there's something I've got to tell you. I want to be a traffic warden. I can't even say the words.
Right.
I'd rather she was a pole dancer.
Right, all right. Giles Brandreth, you challenge first. What is your challenge?
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes, and in this game, and that's a correct challenge, so he gets a point for a correct challenge. He takes over the subject, which is traffic wardens. And Giles, you have 42 seconds, starting now.
To have an affair with a traffic warden could well be described as deviation of a kind. Hesitation is something that I would certainly consider before indulging in this, and repetition is not on my mind. But the one that I have actually conjured up is a girl called Liza, and it was the uniform that got me. Those yellow epaulettes and the way that she wore the buttons.
Chris, you've challenged.
Do you know, I don't... Well, because they're... No, but I heard a popping noise, which I thought might be a hesitation, but it was a popping noise.
It was a popping noise.
Yeah, it wasn't a hesitation at all.
You're very keen, Chris.
I know.
I think it was an incorrect challenge. So, Gyles, you get another point for an incorrect challenge, and you have 20 seconds to continue on traffic wardens starting now.
Traffic wardens were introduced to the United Kingdom in the 1960s by Sir Robert Mark when he was the Chief Constable of Leicestershire, and introduced as well in that particular part of the
Clement
world.
Freud challenge.
Repetition of introduced.
He's introduced it twice, yes. So you repeat the word, a correct challenge to Clement Freud, a point to him and the subject, or with 11 seconds, traffic wardens, Clement, starting now.
Traffic wardens have become a misnomer for unpaid or underpaid tax collectors. I think it is quite monstrous how little wardening of traffic...
Gyles challenged.
I think there was a hesitation between little and wardening.
No, I think you're getting a bit sharp, Gyles. I know you haven't played the game for quite a long time, but...
Clement's face is so wasted on radio.
I know.
It was when I was helping Clement on with his truss earlier. He said, make no concessions to my age.
I think it's Clement's reaction, is what Jenny was referring to. Clement, I disagree. No, you were just drawing breath to get on to the next word. And it was an incorrect challenge. You have another point. You have 1 second left on traffic wardens, starting now.
They hide.
So at the end of that round... Oh, by the way, in this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. It was Clement Freud, and so naturally he's in the lead at the end of the round. Chris Neill, will you take the next round?
Thank
you. It is Alhambra. What better when we're in this beautiful theatre here? But tell us something about Alhambra. 60 seconds, starting now.
As everyone will know here present and probably listening on the radio, the Alhambra is a dance. My mother taught me this dance when I was about 6.
Jenny, challenge.
I'm sorry, Chris.
Oh, you're right,
But you
dance.
did say dance twice.
I can't do that, can I?
I know you like to dance.
No,
Unfortunately, you can't do it twice on this game. Ha ha ha.
So, Jenny, you have a correct challenge. You have the Alhambra. You don't have it, but you have the subject of the Alhambra, and you have 52 seconds starting now.
I actually do have an Alhambra, Nicholas. It's a car made by Seat, a cross between a Volkswagen Charon and a Ford Galaxy.
Chris challenged.
That's like hesitation, running out of things.
No, it's because I've got a bit of a cold and I'm wheezing.
Do we make allowances?
I think she did keep going. I mean, there was a certain elision between certain words.
I
but
thought that.
Well, that's quite the reverse of pausing.
Yeah.
That's running words together.
What's
Chris.
the difference between an elision and a pause?
And a pause is when you stop. Elision is running two words together.
Do you want to get me for lying? Because I haven't got one at all.
So, Jenny, an incorrect challenge, another point to you. 44 seconds, Alhambra starting now.
They come in a variety of colours. Silver, blue...
Chris Neill challenge.
She can't keep talking about this if it doesn't exist.
Yes, I can.
She can if she wants to, provided she
Really?
doesn't hesitate, deviate. And we have to go with Jenny on this because she wasn't doing anything else, which was wrong with just a minute. 41 seconds, still with you, Jenny. Alhambra starting now.
The original Alhambra, of course, was a Spanish palace built in the 15th century by an architect unknown.
Clement challenged.
It was more like the 13th or 14th century.
I'm afraid Clement...
Pedancy. Can we put this to a vote?
No,
I say 15.
I'm sorry, no. He is right. It was built actually in the 1200 and something, which is the 13th century.
Right, I'm going to poke my eyes out with this biro now.
So Clement's challenge was correct, and he gets the subject. And there are 35 seconds, the Alhambra starting now.
The Church of St. Peter in Bradford became a cathedral in 1919, which was the beginning of the 20th century.
Gyles challenge.
No, the beginning of the 20th century was either the year 1900 or the year 1901.
So it was the 20th century. So you've been caught up on centuries as well. So Gyles, a correct challenge, and you have 25 seconds. Alhambra starting now.
When you think of the beauty of the original Alhambra in Granada, it is somewhat heartbreaking to realize that now these names are conjuring up tired old theatres and a television company that produces...
Chris's challenge.
Deviation. This is certainly not a tired old theatre. It's lovely.
Absolutely. You were putting your head into a noose there, Gyles, yes.
I, of course, did not mean this Alhambra.
But this is the only Alhambra left in the whole of the British Isles.
This is the exception to the rule.
Right. And Chris, you were right. It's beautiful. It was deviation, and you had the subject, and you have 12 seconds. Tell us something about the Alhambra starting now.
Anyway, with this physical movement I was trying to tell you about somewhat earlier...
Penny challenged.
He was deviating then. It's got nothing to do with the physical movement, has it?
Well, according to him, it
It's
has.
a dance. It's a physical movement.
Oh,
isn't
you're
it?
back on that? You're banging on again about that?
He's allowed to bang on about anything in this game if he wants to, provided he doesn't hesitate, deviate, or repeat something. So, Chris, an incorrect challenge.
Thank
you still
you.
have the Alhambra, and the subject, and you have 10 seconds starting now.
I learnt it at Miss Jackie's School of Dancing for Tots. I was there with my sister Jo.
Jenny challenged.
2 eyes. I.
Oh, you haven't won many friends in this audience with that challenge, Jenny.
Don't tell them I'm from Lancashire, Nicholas.
You've lost even more members of the audience now. I don't know. It was correct challenge, but Jenny, we do resist the
bitchy,
temptation.
wasn't it?
It wasn't bitchy. It was just keenness,
Yeah,
over
I don't think it
keenness.
allowed for the fact that I didn't have a university education, thank you.
So, but within the rules of just a minute is a correct challenge. So, Jenny, I have to give it to you. 6 seconds. Alhambra starting now.
It's Moorish in design with fountains and mosaics. I think the grouting's still quite
Clement
clean.
challenge.
2 Anns.
So he's drawn your attention to the fact that we ignore some of the little words like that. So Clement was correct. He has that point. He has the subject. And once again, he's got in with 1 second to go.
No.
Alhambra starting now.
There's nowhere I would sooner be.
So once again, Clement Freud speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. But Jenny Eclair got points in that round. So they're now equal in the lead ahead of Gyles Brandreth and Chris Neill. And Gyles, your turn to begin. The subject is hay fever. Tell us something about hay fever in just a minute, starting now.
It is well known that Sir Noel Coward, who once said that television is for appearing on, not looking at, wrote a number of wonderful plays, including Private Lives, A Song at Twilight, and my own personal favourite, Hay Fever. It is not so well known that this great thespian and author of...
Chris challenge.
Was that a little hesitation?
That was a
some-
little
Oh, right.
hesitation, yes. He was trying to think of another way to describe Noel Coward. And...
Well, it's not that difficult, really, is it?
43 seconds. Hay fever's with you, Chris, starting now.
Hay fever, the girls cry out to me, what with my effortless rhythm and snaking hips, as I parade down the streets of London town. They can't get enough of me, my slim figure, you'll note I have been to the gym, and my well-coiffed hair. I tend to shave at least twice a day, that I have smooth cheeks for them to kiss. And that's it, really.
Jenny, your light came on simultaneously with Gyles, so I have an impossible decision
Shall
to
we
make.
fight?
Yes. You give me your challenge, and then I'll find out what Gyles's was.
He hesitated. He ran out of compliments about
What
himself.
was your challenge?
Not only did he run out of steam, but also he was back on this dancing thing. He was doing the Alhambra.
He's obsessed.
He is obsessed.
Right.
Shall we try and speak together?
No, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll give you both a point because you're both pressed together. And who is ahead? Jenny, you're ahead, so Gyles has the benefit of the doubt.
Oh.
Is that all right?
Not really, Nicholas.
Not really. All right. 24 seconds, Gyles. Hay fever starting now.
What is not so well remembered is that this aforementioned playwright was also somebody who suffered from the condition of hay fever, and there was the memorable first night of Titus Andronicus in 1955 at Stratford-upon-Avon, in which the role of Titus was essayed...
Jenny challenge.
Oh, now he is deviating like mad.
No, he repeated Titus.
And Titus. Wait,
Yes.
no, Titus.
Is
Titus
right.
a drum.
It's so, Jenny, you have got the point. It's fair plays now, so you've got 10 seconds to keep going on hay fever, starting now.
I can't be doing with people suffering from hay fever. It's a moral weakness, an excuse for not passing exams. Boo-hoo, I didn't get any A-levels because...
Clement has challenged you.
Repetition of woo-hoo.
I said boo, boo-hoo.
She actually said boo-hoo, not hoo-hoo.
Not from here.
I have to explain to our listeners that Gyles and Clement said one side of me on one side of the stage and Jenny and Chris on the other side, so that maybe when the audience are responding it's difficult to actually catch it, but she did actually say boo-hoo and not hoo-hoo.
You haven't explained though why they were on the other side of the stage, why we're in this cage. Is that...
Jenny, an incorrect challenge. You have 2 seconds on hay fever starting now.
They're always ganging up together, going on about their dreary, miserable symptoms.
So Jenny, Eclair and Sadie, being generous towards Gyles when they both buzzed together, got other points in that round, including speaking for one when the whistle went. So she's now taken the lead. She's ahead of Gyles, Brandreth and Clement Freud, equal in second. You don't need to clap that, it's just information for the listeners. And Chris Neill in third place. And Jenny, it's also your turn to begin. And the subject is Dinkies, which I understand stands for Double Income No Kids. Tell us something about Dinkies, and you can use that subject as well, double income, no kids, in this game starting now.
This was a phrase made up in the 80s around a time that they introduced yuppies. For a while, my partner and I were Dinkies before a child was spawned and just...
I think we were just getting too much anatomical detail, and there was hesitation.
Hesitation was correct, yes, Gyles. You have a correct challenge, you have a point, you have 49 seconds. Tell us something about Dinkies, double income, no kids, starting now.
Dinkies is an acronym, and these are things that I love, like...
Chris challenged.
Isn't it an acronym?
Yes.
The correct word is an acronym. Chris, you have a correct challenge, and you have 44 seconds. Dinkies starting now.
Actually, I'm a ninky. No income, no kids yet. But you never know. I know, actually, Dinky does sound like a character from a Gilbert and Sullivan operetta, say, but it is a recognised social condition. As someone said earlier, it was brought about in the time of Margaret Thatcher. So much money, so...
Jenny challenged.
Oh, he was being marvellous, but then he just stopped being good, didn't he?
Well, he just hesitated.
Yes. He hesitated, that's what he did.
Yes, you don't need to comment on his style, just he hesitated. So, Jenny, another point, another 27 seconds available. Dinkies starting now.
Most couples have a halcyon financial period before children come along and bankrupt them with nannies, school fees, bassoon lessons, kiddies' parties involving the invitation of one of those very expensive clowns that's not very funny and ever so scary. Now, I've really lost it. I am so sorry.
Hesitation,
yes.
Clement, correct, yes. And you've got in with 8 seconds on the subject of Dinkies, starting now.
Single parents use nanny's knickers in emergency is an acronym for spunky, which is...
So Clement brought that round to a close with a panache, and the audience showed their appreciation of how he managed in this game to work that one out and deliver it just as the whistle went. But he's moved forward. He's still in third place, but he's moved, and Gyles has moved. They're all in actually the same order, and Jenny's still in the lead. Right, Chris, Neill, your turn to begin. The subject in the spotlight. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Some people may know that the spotlight is the actor's Bible. It's a directory of those performers, and there are pictures of all of them in there. Some boring afternoons, I do go to my local library, and flicking through it, I play the would I, wouldn't I game. Now, basically, I'm looking at juvenile leads rather than character actors, as you can imagine, but it's very good.
Gyles challenge.
We've had a repetition of the word actor.
You've had actor, yes. Right, Gyles, you've got it. 41 seconds in the spotlight, starting now.
The Spotlight is the name of a theatrical bar off Broadway on 42nd Street, where I once encountered Sir John Gielgud sitting, sipping a dry martini and doing a crossword puzzle.
Clement Freud challenge.
I thought he said sitting, sipping.
I did say sitting, sipping. They're not the same word.
Exactly right.
Yes, right.
Which is why I apologise for my interruption.
That's very sweet of you. That's the least I can do.
Gyles, you have a point for being interrupted because you stopped, and you have 33 seconds to continue on in the spotlight, starting now.
In the spotlight, the mighty thespian was undertaking this little puzzle in which he was trying to come up with...
Jenny challenged.
Are you allowed to say puzzle? You know when you've been interrupted once, and he said puzzle before, then he was interrupted by Clement wrongly.
Yeah, if you
and then
said
he
puzzle in
again.
this round...
Yes, he's repetitioned it.
I said the word puzzle after Sir Clement, if you don't mind.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And actually pressed the button. And I think somebody of his distinction and seniority...
He didn't actually say puzzle in the round when he was speaking officially. It was in between during an interruption. Gyles. Incorrect challenge. So you have another point and 29 seconds in the spotlight starting now.
Picture the scene in the spotlight where this extraordinary thespian is there.
Jenny challenged.
Definitely thespian.
No,
He did say
that
Yes.
You talked about
Yes, listen to them.
You talked about John Gielgud and you referred to him as this thespian when you came back to talk about
This
him.
mighty act, but I don't mind. If this wonderful audience feels this way.
And the chairman is convinced of it, so it's 24 seconds. Jenny,
I'm accepting it from them, not you, Nicholas.
24 seconds. Jenny, with you in the spotlight, starting now.
I love to be in the spotlight. This is because I suffer from a condition known as showing off. I sometimes wonder that I might die of it. It'll be on my death certificate, won't it?
Chris challenge.
Will it be on a bet certificate?
You can either have it as hesitation or deviation from English as we understand
I'll
it.
have half and half, thank you.
It's only 1 point, but you have the subject and 13 seconds in the spotlight starting now.
I always remember Sir Dirk Bogart, when he was in that film Death in Venice, based on the novel by Thomas Mann, sat on the beach and they'd put all that makeup on him, all the slap poured down the spotlight.
Jenny challenged.
He was talking about Dirk Bogart, not about being in the spotlight, really.
I think he was conveying how much he was in the spotlight.
Oh, because
and in
of-
starring in that
right.
film, he was very much in the spotlight.
I'm very sorry, Chris. You're very welcome to have the round back.
He's got a point legitimately for being an incorrect challenge. 4 seconds, Chris, in the spotlight, starting now.
He was looking at the boy paddling in the surf off Venice.
Giles challenge.
I think we now really have moved into a serious area of deviation.
Right. Qualify that.
We've moved away from the spotlight into a lurid picture of an older man leering after a young boy rushing off into the waves.
That is exactly what he did in
the
Venice.
film.
Yeah, but
In
he
the
said
film.
Venice
And he was in the
twice.
He said Venice. Oh, also he said Venice twice.
No, it's too late now.
I said that.
You can't have a supplementary challenge.
I'm afraid I sensed deviation, that's all, and I just wanted to.
Yes, I know. You're very sensitive on that area. Right. But, Chris, the first challenge was an incorrect one, so you have another point for that.
Thank
and you
you.
have 1 second on in the spotlight, starting now.
In my bedroom, I have a very large spotlight.
So Chris Neill was then speaking as the whistle went, gained an extra point for doing so, and Jenny Clare still in the lead. Chris Neill's moved forward. Giles Brandreth in second place, and then the other two equal in third place. Giles, your turn to begin. The subject is loyalty cards. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
When I was a member of Parliament, the mighty Matthew Paris said of me that I was very loyal and something of a card. And consequently, I feel that this is a good subject for me to speak upon. I was so, in fact, faithful to my leadership that when Mr. Major became Prime Minister, I went grey overnight. Subsequently, when William Hague topped my party, I began to go bald. I was so grateful that Anne Widdecombe did not become leader.
Clement, you challenged.
I was saving him for his political oblivion. And he did say I was 4 times.
He did.
Political oblivion is something Clement will know about.
Right.
All rather camp on that side.
Yes. Clement, you have a correct challenge. You have 32 seconds. Loyalty cards starting now.
My father was, for a while, the vice president of the East Anglian Lentil Growers Association. And while this was not an enormously well-paid job, he did get loyalty cards from all those in Essex, Suffolk, Lincoln, Cambridgeshire, and Norfolk who appreciated the hard work and each birthday at Christmas, Easter, Whitsun, and the bank holiday Monday in August.
Giles challenged.
When I challenged, he had not said August, and it was a repetition of bank holiday because Easter and Whitsun are both bank holidays.
Oh, dirty.
You are getting so keen, Giles. I know you haven't been there. You have got to repeat the words. They may be bank holidays. He's repeating a thought, but not the word. Just a minute is about language.
I understand all that.
You're just getting,
I just had enough of this tedious story.
You're just getting wound up and revealing all kinds of interesting aspects about your private life, none of which we believe. Clement, incorrect challenge. You have 4 seconds. Loyalty cards starting now.
If you stick a loyalty stamp on a loyalty card and send it to the National Health.
So Clement was then speaking when the whistle went, gained that extra point. He's now still in third place with Chris Neill. They're just behind Giles Brandreth, who is a little way behind Jenny Eclair, who's still our leader. And I understand we're moving into the final round. So let me give you the score, because they're all getting pretty close now. Jenny Eclair is still in the lead, which is only 2 points ahead of Giles Brandreth and Clement Freud, equal in second place, and a few points ahead of Chris Neill in third place. So, Jenny, it's your turn to begin, and the subject is rocket science. There's a challenge for you. Tell us something about rocket science in just a minute, starting now.
Well, how fortuitous that I should get this round. When I was a girl, we had rocket science on a Tuesday afternoon, followed by double brain surgery, then hockey. So I know all there is about rocket science. I won't go into the detail here. I won't underestimate the audience.
Clement Freud challenge.
2 won'ts.
I won't. Right. So, a correct challenge, Clement.
I'm very grateful to Clement for that, actually.
Rocket science is with you, and there are 38 seconds available, starting now.
Rocket science does tend culinarily to involve the introduction.
Chris challenge.
Well, I was slightly led by the audience, really. He's culinarily. Is that deviation?
Well, according to the audience reaction, it definitely is. And so, Chris, you have a correct challenge, and you have 33 seconds. Tell us something about rocket science, starting now.
Rocket should be no great science to grow in this country because it is almost an indigenous plant. And yet, when you go and buy it in a supermarket, it's about £8 for a small bunch. I don't know why. Absolute fortune.
Clement challenge.
I think he goes to the wrong supermarket. That's
So Clement's correct. He has 24 seconds on rocket science, starting now.
When I was at school, they said, do you want to do geography, history, or rocket science? And I decided on rocket science, and every Tuesday afternoon...
Jenny, challenge.
He's stealing my life.
Jenny, the awful thing about just a minute is you can steal other people's material. Clement, you have another point. 15 seconds. Rocket science, starting now.
It was mixed rocket science. Boys, girls, a lesbian teacher, and a hand warden we had not...
Giles challenged.
I wanted Giles to have a point.
Yes, Giles.
Yes, there was both hesitation.
It was hesitation, yes, Giles. So you got in on this subject. 6 seconds to tell us something about rocket science, starting now.
Once upon a time, the Shah of Iran took me aside and said this name-dropping...
Chris challenge, yes?
Was there a hesitation?
No, I'm afraid... Giles, it was an incorrect challenge, though, as you have another point. Show how fair I am. 3 seconds, rocket science, starting now.
Neil Armstrong and I!
No. Chris challenge. It was no hesitation.
It was deviation, though.
Neil Armstrong, I'm sorry. Rocket science and Neil Armstrong is not deviation.
Giles, please, this is not television. You needn't get so angry. He didn't actually have you for deviation. He had you for hesitation.
I said hesitation. I didn't have you for deviation. I had you for hesitation. It was Jenny Eclair. She was mouthing off.
And Jenny from the other side of the stage shouted deviation. You were getting... They were honestly winding each other up so much. Thank God this is the last round. We'll go out and we'll have a little retire afterwards, and we'll either have a drink or a fight. Giles, you have 2 seconds. You've got another point. And you have 2 seconds on rocket science, starting now.
When they went to the moon, it was an extraordinary experience for all of them because...
So, Giles Brandreth brought that round to a close in acrimony and tension. But it's all good grist to the mill, isn't it? You enjoyed it, didn't you? As long as they feel passionate about it, then we can keep going. Right. Let me give you the final situation. Jenny Eclair, who led all the way through, finished only just in third place and ahead of Chris Neill, but she was only 2 points behind our joint winners, which are Giles Brandreth and Clement Freud. A extra round of applause for them. So, it only remains for me to say thank you to our 4 passionate players of the game, Jenny Eclair, Gyles Brandreth, Chris Neill and Clement Freud. I also thank Claire Bartlett, who's been helping me keep the score and blowing her whistle so elegantly. And we're also grateful to our producer, Claire Jones, who tries to keep us in order when she can. And we're also indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this delightful game, and we are very grateful to this lovely audience here in the wonderful Alhambra Theatre in Bradford for cheering us on our way with such style, and their passion was equal only to the passion on the stage. Thank you from our audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and from our panel. Goodbye until the next time we play Just a Minute. Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it is my infinite pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but throughout the world, but also to welcome to the show this week 4 distinctive, dynamic, and diverse personalities who are once more going to display their spontaneous wit, their verbal dexterity and ingenuity as they try and speak on a subject that I give them, and they do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviating from the subject. And those 4 people are, on my right, it's Paul Merton and Clement Freud, and on my left, Linda Smith and Ross Noble. Would you please welcome all 4 of them? Beside me sits Lottie Barker, who's going to help me keep the score, and she will blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Marlow Theatre in their beautiful cathedral, historic city of Canterbury. And we have in front of us, in that wonderful county of Kent, the Garden of England, and we have in front of us a fine Kentish audience ready to cheer us on our way. And we begin the show this week with Clement Freud. And how apt can you be? The subject is Canterbury Tales. Clement, tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Geoffrey Chaucer wrote the Canterbury Tales and would have us believe that it was done on horseback by 31 people. He wrote, "At night there came into that hostelry," meaning the Tarbuck at Southwark, "full 29 in a company of sundry folk, by aventure fall in fellowship, and pilgrims were they all that toward Canterbury wold ride. The chambers and the stables were wide, and well we were eased at our best. But shortly, ere the sun he had to rest, so had I spoken to them every one that I was of their fellowship anon."
Well, sometimes in Just a Minute I give out bonus points, but I'm going to give it out right away for that, because to suddenly have a subject thrown at you and recite some of Geoffrey Chaucer's words like that was a real pièce de résistance. And so a bonus point before we even start. Linda Smith, challenge you. What's your challenge, Linda?
It was very lovely, but 2 fellowships.
Yes, there were the fellowships. You did repeat fellowship.
Well, you can't have too many.
That's
really,
Chaucer's fault. That's not Clement's fault. If anything, you should take a bonus point off Geoffrey Chaucer.
Clement's going through it in his mind of wonder if he did say repeat fellowship. You did say at the beginning and later on. So, Linda, you have a correct challenge, and in this game you get a point for that, and you take over the subject of the Canterbury Tales, and there are 23 seconds available starting now.
In the Canterbury Tales, the pilgrims to Canterbury.
Ross.
There was a bit of a pa-pa-pa.
Yeah.
No. Actually, that was Chaucerian English.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I wouldn't expect you to know that, Ross.
It sounded a little bit to me like the Pearl and Dean advert.
Well, it was actually. It's very similar. It's very similar because it goes pa-pa-pa-pa-pa-pa-pa pilgrims.
Ross, we do interpret that as hesitation.
Thanks.
So you have the subject. You have Canterbury Tales. You have 19 seconds starting now.
The best one was the Parson's Tale. That was where a man got 3 people together in a radio environment.
Clement Freud challenge.
Deviation, there was no Parson's Tale.
He's right, there was no Parson's Tale. I thought you were going to sing something lovely.
Hang on!
That's not Geoffrey Chaucer, is it?
I'll tell you what, the amount of gigs where he's turned up just...
Is there somebody in the audience who thinks there was a Parson's Tale? From where?
Well, the best thing is, right, it's the only one I know. Because I was wandering around today, and I got a book, and I just flicked straight to the back.
Ross, you have a point for an incorrect challenge. You have the subject,
okay.
And there are 14 seconds on the Parson's Tale. No, I'm sorry.
You're so used to offering a bit of Parson's Tale around town.
I could take that further, but it's radio, and I think we'll respect people's sensitivities. 14 seconds, Canterbury Tales, starting now.
There was a Cook story as well, I believe, which involved a young boy on a moped who would go to...
Clement challenge.
There was a Cook's Tale. He didn't have a moped.
He didn't have a moped.
It was a Harley Davidson, wasn't it?
Yeah. In your fantasy world, maybe. What a pity. Clement, correct challenge. You have 8 seconds. The subject is now still Canterbury Tales, starting now.
The Canterbury Tales.
Ross, challenge.
Sorry, I forgot to mention, it was a donkey that looked a bit like a moped.
It's too late now,
Sorry.
Ross. You're not careful. If you do too many interruptions, the other people get points. But I won't charge any points on this occasion.
Why not?
Sorry.
Well, I suppose that's only fair. You weren't interrupted, and those are the rules of the game. That's how I work. Right, Clement? Another point to you. You love getting your points, and I'm giving them to you. Right, and you have 7 seconds. Canterbury Tales, starting now.
But nevertheless will I have time and space, here that I further in this daily pace, to tell you all the condition of each of them, so as they seem to me...
Whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion was Clement Freud, so naturally he's in the lead at the end of that round. It made me think...
Clement just said that he knows the whole of the Canterbury Tales.
Well, we haven't got time for it all. At the moment, and,
it's an achievement, though, isn't it?
An achievement, yes. I just think it shows... It's taken him all these years to show that his education wasn't wasted. No, I didn't mean that as a snide remark. I was trying to pay him a compliment to show that he was a well-educated man. And I didn't mean...
It's a useful trick, I think, to be able to do that.
Yes.
You might be at a pub quiz. Can you do the whole of the Canterbury Tale?
I think we're going on with just a minute. Ross, would you take the next round? The subject is Mumbo Jumbo. We have a lot of that in just a minute because they have to keep going under pressure. There are 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
A lot of people think that donkeys disguised as mopeds is mumbo jumbo, but I'm here to prove them wrong. I have a catalogue backstage which I would like to show to each and every one of you to make sure that my particular train of thought on that is correct. But mumbo jumbo, of course, there once was a family called the Bojumbo family. There was Mum Bojumbo, there was Dad Bojumbo, and of course, as well as that, who could forget the little
Paul,
baby...
you challenged, Paul.
Well, I don't know, really. Is this a repetition of Bo Jumbo?
No, it's on the card.
No.
Part of it's on the card.
Part of it's on the card. You can repeat either the word or the... But you've actually split a word and created a new word, Bo Jumbo. So...
I should have an extra point for that.
The words on the card are mumbo and jumbo. So I think, strictly within the rules of just a minute, I mean, I have to be fair, but... So I think that's a correct challenge, Paul. So he split the words and Bo Jumbo... Listen, I've got rules to stick to.
That's the trouble.
Well, 6 people don't agree with it.
I know.
Out of 500.
I know you have your favourites, and I know you're... But please, one has to make the difficult decision. Paul, a correct challenge.
All right, there's, yeah.
33 seconds available. Mumbo Jumbo starting now.
When the first elephant appeared at Regent's Park in about 1862, the general public were baffled as to what it actually was. Many of them hadn't seen elephants before, and they wondered whether this strange creature was an amalgamation of different beasts. If you look at the trunk, you could say it's like an anteater. If you look at the huge backside of the creature, it could be something that you've seen once standing against the wall deepest Romford.
Linda challenged.
A little hesitation there, but I think there's not hesitation, I mean deviation.
Why?
Oh, you've confused me now with your questions.
What was the deviation, madam?
Oh, he did something. What did he do? I don't know.
He didn't hesitate, and that was your first challenge.
No, what did he do? Oh, there was a repetition before that.
It was, and this is too late now.
Oh,
it's
is
too
it?
late.
Oh.
Your first challenge was hesitation, and I have to be fair within the rules of just a minute.
Enough. Well, I thought he did hesitate a little bit, sort of stumbled. Is that called
No, he kept going quite well.
Oh, did he?
Under
Oh, right.
He did actually repeat.
I know, but don't say now, because you've lost that.
But I was
Actually,
miles
now
away
when
and
I
I
think
forgot to
about
press
it-
my button.
I know. He did repeat something, but nobody spotted it.
I
Paul.
was miles away and I did press me button. That's even worse.
Well, I can't help you. I wasn't listening to a word of it. Absolute rubbish.
Paul. I know, but
I'm
it was
surprised
lovely
they
rubbish.
broadcast that kind of stuff.
Well, we do in just a minute. You'll be surprised.
Do you? Do you really?
I've heard some other lovely rubbish from you on occasions, Paul, which is memorable. You have 2 seconds. You have an incorrect challenge. A point for that, of course. 2 seconds, mumbo-jumbo, starting now.
If you say it the other way, it's jumbo mumbo, and that doesn't make any sense at all. Did you say 2 seconds? That's more than 2 seconds.
So Paul Merton was speaking when the whistle went and gained an extra point for doing so. He's now just 1 point behind Clement Freud, who's in the lead. You spotted the repetition but didn't challenge Freud.
No,
What was it?
What?
What was the repetition?
Creature. Repetition of creature.
Yeah, and he also repeated the word look.
Did I?
Yes, I say this because I do get letters saying, why didn't you tell them? I've told them now. So, right.
You say you get these letters, but nobody's ever actually seen them.
No, because I answer them. I'm very, very conscientious in that respect.
Shall I tell you something, Nicholas? It's me that sends those letters.
I wondered why they were so illiterate. I have to get back occasionally, Paul. No ill feeling meant. Right. So, Linda, your turn. Would you take the subject? The American Dream. What a lovely subject. Talk on it if you can. 60 seconds starting now.
The American Dream. Well, I suppose the American Dream is epitomised by George W. Bush, a man who's worked his way up from a humble president's son to be the first citizen of his country by sheer graft, and I mean that in the true sense of the word. I believe the American dream to have served other people less well. For example, the salesman in Death of a Person Who Does the Job I've just mentioned, a very well-known American play, Willy Loman. The American dream doesn't work out very well for him because he dies, in fact, so that could hardly be worse. Another person for whom the American dream fails is the person... Thank you for your pity.
You went for 47 seconds.
That's a first.
It is very different in the game, and you kept going through that wonderful applause you got. You had to keep going because you otherwise had been interrupted. Wonderful, and they enjoyed it so much. But you were challenged by Paul. What was it?
Repetition of person.
Yes, I'm afraid there was. 12 seconds, Paul. You tell us something about the American dream, starting now.
It is the belief in American society that one day, it doesn't matter who you are, you can grow up and become President of the United States of America. And just look at the...
Clement, you challenge.
of America.
Yes, because it's American on the here. Yeah. You can repeat the words in the card, but not America. It's American on the card. So, well, listen, Clement, 2 seconds ago, tell us something about the American dream, starting now.
Sleepless in Seattle never ever had an American dream.
Clement Freud was speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point. He's increased his lead over Paul Merton. But I think the irony of this particular show is Linda Smith went wonderfully for 47 seconds, had you in stitches out there, and she didn't get any points at all.
Not one? Not one?
No, because you were challenged, you see, and they got the subject over. They get points for challenging, correct challenge, and so forth.
It's a cruel world.
It's a cruel game, but you are appreciated.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Yes, and that, particularly by this audience here. Paul, will you take the next round? The subject, pizzazz. That's a good subject, isn't it? Tell us something about pizzazz in just a minute, starting now.
Pizzazz, an extraordinary word. Let me spell it for you. P-I-Z. Well, I think the rest of it you can imagine. It's an extraordinary term.
Clement, challenge.
2 extraordinaries.
Yes, I'm afraid so, yes. Clement, correct challenge. 52 seconds available. Tell us something about pizzazz, starting now.
Pizzazz is the plural of pizza. And you can get them almost anywhere. anchovy, sardine, cheese, oregano, parsley, chive.
Ross has challenged you. Ross, your challenge.
Oh, I'd just let him have it.
You're just irritated by the fact he can
he's
list.
listing again. But no, it's good. But
Ross, do you mind? I was writing down that recipe.
I think there was a slight hesitation, but then I don't know.
No. He was listening, and it just got to you, didn't it? Because he does it so well. Yes. Clement, pizzazz is still with you. Another point as well. 42 seconds available, starting now.
If you go to any pizzeria and ask for pizzazz, they will know exactly what you want. Might ask, request the information.
Linda, challenge.
Actually, I suppose it would be deviation from the Italian language. Shouldn't it be pizzeria rather than pizzeria?
Oh.
Well, it didn't sound like they were selling pizzas.
No. I think it could have been something else.
I wouldn't go in, I'll tell you that.
I wouldn't go near it.
No, I think that's a moot point. I don't think so. Pronunciation of pizzeria, whether you do it the Italian way or the anglicised version, I don't think we could allow that one, Linda. A pity, because I'd love to hear from you again. But Clement has got a point, and there are 34 seconds starting now.
If you go to a place where they sell pizzas and ask where the pizza is...
Paul challenge.
Have we had "if you go" before as a phrase?
You have, if you go.
Yeah, and ask repetition.
Paul, you've got a correct challenge. You have 28 seconds. Pizzazz, starting now.
Al Jolson amongst the old entertainers could best be described as a man of pizzazz. They used to say he wouldn't need a microphone, just bound onto the stage, grab the audience by the scruff of the neck and beat the living daylights out of them. And by the end of the evening, as the songs rolled out of their ears, California, here I come.
Ross challenged.
Deviation, because the songs, they roll out of the mouth into the ears and not actually out of the ears.
No, but
themselves.
they're in the brain, then they've got to come out of the ears, otherwise they're stuck there and they can't hear anything.
I see what you mean, but on the other hand, you could also say they went into the brain and they didn't want to retain it, so they came out again. So, I mean,
but he said he had pizzazz. If he had pizzazz, it would have retained it.
Yeah, we could go on arguing like this for the rest of the night.
So I'll draw you a diagram.
No. I think, Ross, I think it's a far-fetched challenge. There's a certain amount of truth in it. I have to give the benefit of the doubt to Paul on this occasion. Say, Paul, you still have the subject. You have 9 seconds. Pizzazz, starting now.
In today's modern show business world, it's very hard to find people of a similar stature. Perhaps Shirley Bassey, who can belt out a tune louder.
Clement challenge.
Belt. The other chap belted.
What's his name was belting it out before.
I can't believe I repeated the word belt. Well, I'm not even talking about belts.
Yes.
That's extraordinary.
Well, you were talking about people who belt out songs.
Yeah.
Naturally, right. So, Clement, you have a correct challenge. You've only got 1 second. Pizzazz, starting now.
Shirley Bassey.
So Clement Freud, another point, speaking of the whistle when, cleverly getting in just beforehand, has increased his lead ahead of Paul, Merton, Ross Noble and Linda Smith in that order. And Ross, your turn to begin. The subject, good topical subject for Canterbury, Thomas à Becket. Tell us something about that character in this game, starting now.
Thomas à Becket, as all local people know, was actually named after a pub. That's right. His father, his good old-fashioned man that used to bring him up when he was a kid, was in fact very much enjoyed the places of drinking and in fact had a nice penchant for...
Clement challenge.
Repetition of fact.
Yes.
Oh, I tried to not to say enjoy. And
I know. That's what. This is the toughness of this game. So, Clement, 42 seconds available. You tell us something about Thomas à Becket, starting now.
Thomas à Becket is a gymnasium in East London where Henry Cooper and many other boxers trained before their bouts. I think the gym was called after a man who was sainted, was Archbishop of Canterbury, lived in the 12th century, and I don't know too much about him, other than that he was canonised.
Ross, your challenge.
Well, he was about to hesitate then, wasn't he?
About to hesitate? He never stopped hesitating. I've never known anything go on. I thought that none of them want this subject.
Well, he deviated then.
That none of them want it, so they let him go on and struggling like that.
Yeah,
he did definitely hesitate, yes.
Yes, he hesitated.
Yes. He almost ground to a halt. Ross, you have 18 seconds on Thomas à Becket, starting now.
That information that Clement just gave was absolutely correct, and I know all those facts as well, and I would have said that.
Clement challenge.
Repetition of facts.
Clement, you have 10 seconds on Thomas à Becket, starting now.
T.S. Eliot's play Murder in the Cathedral was based on Thomas à Becket, who met his end in that ecclesiastical palace in Kent, not far.
Clement Freud's knowledge of history, though he didn't know 1171, Henry II, 14. He's got so many points. He's way ahead of Paul Merton, Ross Noble, and Linda Smith in that order. And Linda, your turn to begin. The subject is sailors. Hello, sailor. Give us something on that subject in this game, starting now.
Sailors. My favourite sailor has to be Ellen McCarthy. What a marvellous feat of sailing round the world she did. It must have been very hard wrestling with the sails alone. You know yourself how hard it is with a duvet. You need two people and then you don't make a very good fist of it, and it usually leads to a row and someone stomping off saying, oh, well, I thought we changed it 3 weeks ago anyway. And that usually tends to be the man, and you say, yes, you're supposed to change them every week, actually. At least.
Paul, challenge.
I think this is very much a personal issue for Linda. I think changing duvets has moved on quite a bit from sailors.
So what is your challenge?
It's deviation from the subject.
Yes, I think it has.
I admit that sailors would sometimes change duvets.
There was another mistake she made.
Even more difficult in a storm.
Yes,
that's true. Right, we'll give you deviation, Paul. And it's 33 seconds for you on sailors, starting now.
Well, of course, if you didn't have sailors, there wouldn't be boats. And if you didn't have boats...
That's the fun of the game as well as the toughness of it. Right. You've got it back again. Sailors, with you. 28 seconds, Linda, starting now.
Sailors are the seaborne wing of the armed forces. They are the soldiers of the watery substance that surrounds our island, and they're very much like those land warriors, except that they have a more relaxed attitude to the obviously homophobic elements of... I invented a word. Point for me.
No, I'm sorry, not Linda, right.
Do you get homophobic elephants? Does that...
They're called mumbo-jumbo.
Right, Ross.
Homophobic, that would come in for something, that word, wouldn't it?
What was your challenge, Ross?
Homophobic.
Homophobic,
Yeah,
a deviation from English
word.
as we understand it and normally speak it, even in just a minute. Ross, you've got a correct challenge. You have 11 seconds. You have sailors starting now.
All sailors have tattoos. They also eat spinach, and that's the way that they fight off big burly men that try and get off with their very skinny girlfriends who have got names similar to that of cooking stuffs, i.e. olive oil.
So Ross Noble was speaking when the whistle went, gained an extra point for doing so, and he's moved forward, but he's still in third place. And Paul, we're moving into the last round. So let me give you the situation before we do move into the last round. Linda Smith is training a little. She has some points and done very well. In fact, she's spoken longer than most people, but hasn't got many points, which is very sad. Ross Noble's contributed well. He's in third place, but Paul Merton's in second place, just a little way behind our leader, Clement Freud, as we move into the final round. And Paul Merton, it's your turn to begin, and the subject is the gutter press. Oh, yes. Yes, tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
The gutter press, yesterday's trees, tomorrow's fish and chips. Not many people take much notice of what they read in the gutter press, apart from, of course, the individuals who are featured. Imagine your embarrassment if you were caught consorting with prostitutes and taking cocaine. What an enormous, terrible thing that would be for you to have to appear on television while people pointed fingers at you and general laughter. It's an incredible thing that this should happen in this day and age. Here we are in the 21st century. Why can't show business stars spend the BBC licence payers' money as they see fit? If they find a strumpet in a hotel, give her 50 quid. She's probably worth it.
Linda, you challenged.
Partly just, out of common decency, really. But also...
Who are you protecting?
Well, who knows? I don't know what you get up to, Nicholas.
So, I've got to have a challenge when the
challenge was a repetition of hotel.
Really?
Yes, you mentioned...
Are you sure about it,
Yes,
Nicholas? I don't
earlier
think I
on you
did.
said in the hotel room, and then you said in the strumpet in this other hotel.
Ah, yeah,
Yes,
different
did.
hotel, you see.
Yes, 2 hotels.
Same chain, but different hotel. So... Strictly
But I tell you
speaking.
what we do. I've done this before in this game. If something goes particularly well and you ride your laughs and so forth, we throw out those bonus points. I did it to Clement Freud recently. I give it to you again. A bonus point for Paul for his positive reaction from the audience for his hilarious piece. And Linda, you have a correct challenge, and you have 23 seconds. The gutter press starting now.
I was once a victim of the gutter press. It was the Erith and Crayford Observer incorporating the Kentish Times. They reported a joke I told on television about my hometown, which was the first mentioned of the places in the name of that publication. I said it was boring on the means of communication that I have previously described.
And Ross challenged.
I think that was every single one, wasn't
Oh,
it?
yes. I think you were being a bit unkind. I mean, the look on Linda's face as she struggled to keep going then was such that you were enjoying it, and the audience were. They were suffering with her.
Yeah.
And what you challenged, yes, well,
Which is what comedy's all about, after all.
It was a repetition of previously.
That's right. Yeah. And 1 second, you've got in with 1 second to go, Ross. It is the
All right,
game.
have it back then, if you can.
Those are the rules, really. And you've been listening to it now for nearly 30 minutes. I'd have thought you'd have realised that. Ross, you have the gutter press and 1 second to tell us something about it starting now.
The gutter press. I want...
Well, as I said before that round started, it was to be the last, and it's very sad we have to bring the show to a close. I'm glad you've enjoyed it, because it's given us such pleasure to help you enjoy it. Right, now let me tell you the situation. Linda, who did so well, and you loved seeing her, didn't you, and all the way she struggled, she finished in 4th place. But she gave such good value. Such good value. And Ross Noble gives great value as well, but he finished in 3rd place. And he... Oh! And Paul Merton always gives great value. I mean, you've cheered him already this evening. He got a lot of points, but he didn't quite catch up Clement Freud, who... We should give a round of applause for the other two, so give one to Paul as well. No, that... I must say to our listeners, that was Paul milking it. But now a final round of applause to our winner this week, Clement Freud. I must thank these 4 outstanding players of the game, Paul Merton, Linda Smith, Ross Noble and Clement Freud. And I also thank Lottie Barker, who has helped me keep the score. She's blown her whistle so elegantly. We also thank our producer, Claire Jones, who does such a marvellous job. And we're also indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this game. And we're also thankful to this lovely audience here in the Marlow Theatre in Canterbury, in this beautiful area of Kent, the Garden of England. We've come to the garden, and you've given us a wonderful, horticultural, spontaneous, fabulous reaction. Until we play just a minute again, goodbye! Welcome to Just a Minute. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it is my pleasure not only to welcome our listeners in this country, but in the many countries throughout the world who also listen to this show. And also, it's a huge pleasure to welcome to the show 4 exciting individual and distinctive players of the game, who are going once again to try and pit their wits, their verbal dexterity and ingenuity, as they try and speak on the subject that I give them, and they do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviating from the subject. And those 4 bright sparks are, on my right, Sue Perkins and Tony Hawkes, and on my left, Kit Hesketh Harvey and Wendy Richard. Would you please welcome all 4 of them? I'm very fortunate to have beside me Lottie Barker, who is going to help me keep the score, and she'll blow her whistle with a lot of venom, I'm sure, when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Drill Hall Arts Centre in the Bloomsbury area of London. And we have in front of us, I don't think a particularly arty audience, but certainly an enthusiastic one, ready to cheer us on our way as we begin the show this week with Tony Hawks. Tony, the subject in front of me is The Man on the Clapham Omnibus. Will you talk on that subject? 60 seconds is available, starting now.
I actually travelled to the recording this evening on an omnibus from Clapham. And there was a man sat at the front of this omnibus, and I thought, well, this is quite probably the man on the Clapham omnibus. So I went and sat next to him and started a natural conversation with him, saying something like, these fatwas, they're bad news, aren't they? And then took out a mobile phone and said, he's sitting next to me now. It's surprising how nervous you can make people are. And I asked him, what's your name? Because I'd like to know what the ordinary people of England really think at the moment. And he said, I am Lord Jeremy Atkinson Smythe of Wetherby. And we had a little chat, and I learned that everybody's really rather happy with all the land that they have, and why people are moaning quite so much, I do not understand. Yet this is what people expect from...
Kit, you've challenged.
We had rather a lot of people. I mean, it was...
Yes, you did mention
so
people
much,
before.
so
Yes, yes. Well, listen, Kit, it was quite a long while ago, but you're right, he did say people before. But you went for 7 from 60 is... 53 seconds.
Please,
Not bad
please,
for a start.
Claire, producer, don't edit that bit out where he says...
It's very important that everyone sees the workings of Nicholas's
Please,
mind.
I'll pay you any amount of money to keep that in.
Anyway, Kit, you've got him with 7 seconds to go. It's the man on the Clapham omnibus, starting now.
It is the common man, isn't it? Which
And someone challenged. Sue, you challenged.
There was a kind of...
Yes. For a correct challenge, you get a point, Sue, and you take over the subject. And there are 5 seconds available. The man on the Clapham omnibus, starting now.
That man on the Clapham omnibus is my father, also known as...
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Sue Perkins, and you won't be surprised to hear she's in the lead at the end of that round. Just one ahead of
It
Kit
won't
Hesketh-Parfitt.
last, trust me.
And Tony Hawks, who went for 53 seconds, hasn't got any points at all. I mean, it's just...
But is there somebody I can see at the European Commission about
I talked to that man on the Clapham omnibus if I were you. Right. Sue Perkins, will you take the next round? The subject is estate agents. Tell us something about those much maligned characters in this game, starting now.
Estate agents speak a strange language called lies. They're bred in warm water tanks at a research facility in East Anglia, where they develop nylon suits, lizard-like eyes, gills, and a propensity for breath freshener. Estate agents have a problem understanding space. You and I might walk into a small box room like a Badger's set, whereupon an estate agent will pronounce it magnificent. Their terminology is flawed. Imposing means ugly. Stucco-fronted means, oh, they've slapped a nice bit... Can I repeat stucco?
No. Tony, you challenged.
There were 2 means.
Yes, 2... Oh, that's a tough challenge, isn't it? 2 me's.
No, means.
Oh, mean. Oh, yeah, no, that's all right. Mean, yes, that's a genuine challenge, right. And she did repeat it, yes. So, well, listen, Tony, you have the subject, you have a point, of course, for correct challenge, you have estate agents, not literally, but you have the subject, and there are 28 seconds available, starting now.
Lawyers, estate agents, and chairmen of panel games are not well loved.
Kit, challenge.
Is there such a word of chairmans? Or should it be chairmen? I'm not quite sure, just chairs.
Chairmans, no, it should be chairman. A correct challenge.
Thank you.
Point to you, of course.
Thank you,
23
Chairman.
seconds available. Estate agents are starting now.
I love drooling over the property porn in country life. You look at these amazing pictures. Do I want a Martello Tower in East Anglia or a little chapel in Port Merion? Maybe just a stud in Essex will do me. But it is very exciting. Most estate agents tend to come on the Clapham Omnibus. It gives you particular glee that their enormous properties, which are worth so much money, actually... Oh, yeah! Wow.
Kit Hesketh-Harvey speaking as the whistle went, then gained that extra point, and he has moved forward. He's got other points
Nicholas,
to run.
can you just remind people that I'm still here? I haven't had a chance to say anything.
Well, this audience knows you're still there.
Yes, I know, but I'm talking about the listeners.
Well, I think you've established for the listeners now that you're here,
Fine,
Wendy.
just so long as they haven't
made a nice
forgotten.
rapport with this audience, so they know that you're not only here, but you're in good humour. And I've got a subject here which I think you will love. And knowing your past professional history, it will blend in with some of your work. And therefore, I'm sure you'll go with panache and style on the subject of the best bargain I ever had. How's that for you?
Lovely.
Lovely, right. 60 seconds starting now.
The best bargain I ever had was when I got my Cairn Terrier dog, Shirley Brahms II. She was worth every penny. The joy and delight that wee person has brought to me over the years. My soul...
And who's challenged? Tony, yes.
Why is your dog a person?
Because... she thinks she's a person.
I think it was a
Your dog is schizophrenic.
No, she isn't. She's perfectly well adjusted.
OK, I withdraw my challenge.
You withdraw it?
Yes, I
Because
withdraw.
actually it was a correct challenge, because you can't call a dog a person grammatically. But if you want Wendy to continue, you all love
Well,
Wendy.
I think I'll look really magnanimous if I withdraw.
You will indeed, Tony. And Wendy, you still have the subject, and you have a point because you were interrupted. You have 47 seconds. The best bargain I ever had, starting now.
My canine pal has been with me through thick and thin, fair weather, foul weather. She's always there.
And Kid challenge.
Sorry, 2 weathers.
Too much weather, darling.
Oh, poo, right.
She's been through that as well, probably.
And Kit, a correct challenge, a point, of course. 40 seconds available. The best bargain I ever had, starting now.
Sue Perkins, for aromatherapeutic reasons, gives you a wonderful thing with massage oil for only £100. Tony Hawk's will make your back go click, 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 and...
Tony, you were in first.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't do it for £100. And repetition of click.
Of the click, yes. Tony, you have the subject of the best bargain I ever had. 30 seconds available, starting now.
The best bargain I ever had was when I went to a pet shop to buy a dog, and I was given a person called Gerald Wilcox, who worked in the garden for me for 12 years, and did particularly well. He was quite happy with the meat that I gave him in a little bowl in the corner of the room, and he used to bark and come running up to me at the end of the day and say things, which is unusual.
Sue challenged.
Hesitation? Borderline slight... OK.
No, right. You could have had him for something else,
It was
which
a
I won't mention.
precognitive thing. I sensed he was going to hesitate.
You could have had him for something else, which I won't mention, because otherwise...
Repetition.
No.
Deviation.
No, it's too late now.
He's naked.
No, he's not. Your first challenge was hesitation. He didn't hesitate. So, Tony, you have another point. You have the best bargain I ever had, and you have 8 seconds available, starting now.
Although possibly the best bargain was some gloves that I purchased for £5.99, reduced from 8.
You challenged, Sue.
Repetition of from the previous chunk.
That's right, is correct. Oh, you are a tough player.
Oh, hey.
I don't think you won many friends in this audience with that challenge. But it was a correct challenge, and you came in with half a second before the whistle.
That's awful.
So
I've disgusted myself.
no,
Again.
that is again. I will never discourage enthusiasm. And so, Sue, you have half a second to tell us something about the best bargain I ever had, starting now.
I once bought...
So at the end of that round, Sue, with those extra points she managed to squeeze for herself, she's now equal with Kit Hesketh-Harvey in the lead, one ahead of Tony Hawks and Wendy Richard. And Kit, it is now your turn to begin. And the subject is Botox. I don't know whether you... Why do you laugh? You think you're looking at him? He has personal knowledge of this, but if not, you have 60 seconds to talk on it, starting now.
It's chemical cosmetic surgery whereby you inject botulism into the face and induce rigor mortis. Nicholas Parsons is a leading proponent of it. Although he gives his age as 70 in public, he is in fact 23, and the appearance of senility is utterly misleading. The fragrant starlet Cher has actually had so much that she was pronounced clinically dead in 1983 and is now a body double with an African death mask screwed into her eye sockets. That fragrant
Sue Perkins, challenge.
Repetition of fragrant.
The flagrant was there, yes, and really, after what you said about me, my Botox, I've never gone near the stuff. You have flagrant, you don't. You have 28 seconds on Botox, Sue, starting now.
Botox gives your face the impression of an ironed bath mat, and you wear a continual look of surprise as if you've won the national lottery, week in and 7 days out.
And, Tony, your challenge.
I'm afraid I was tricked into that. I felt that she was surely going to hesitate when she couldn't say weak, but she didn't. So,
And she didn't.
No.
Well, no, she's a subtle player of the game. So it was an incorrect challenge, another point to Sue, and 18 seconds available on Botox starting now.
This rabbit in the headlights look can cause offence, especially coming from traffic wardens. It's not normally the demeanour one would expect, as they're willy-nilly clamping your car and forcing you to pay inordinate fines for tune of...
Kit challenge.
A long way from Botox being clamped and all this. There's no
I
deviation from the
think
subject on the
she's
card.
actually now got off the subject of Botox to such an extent we can say she's deviating.
Can we say that?
You can say that, and you can have a
You're
correct
calling me a
challenge.
deviate.
And you take over this subject with another point to your name, and 6 seconds available starting now.
I was recently working with Joan Rivers, who actually...
Wendy challenged.
I think it's slight hesitation.
Yes, it was a hesitation, Wendy. Tell us something about Botox in 4 seconds starting now.
I think Botox is a wonderful invention and a boon to most women.
So, Wendy Richard got points in that round. You won for speaking as a whistle when she's moved forward. She's equal with Tony Hawkes in third place behind Kit Hesketh-Harvey, and Sue Perkins is one ahead in the lead. And, Tony, your turn to begin. And the subject now is wisdom. Tell us something about wisdom in just a minute, starting now.
My grandfather was known for his exceptional wisdom. Once he said to me, "Son," because he was wise but not very good with generations, he declared, "To whatever extent you have placed your responsibility for love and wholeness on someone else is the degree to which you will be bound to disappointment."
Kit's challenge.
I'm just asking him to repeat. I didn't understand any of that.
To whatever extent you have placed your responsibility for love and wholeness on someone else is the degree to which you will be bound to disappointment.
Yes.
Which was annoying, because I'd asked him what the capital of Poland was.
And what is your challenge? Now you've heard it.
No, I'm not. I feel very informed. I feel disseminated upon.
I know. I think that was wisdom.
I think that was. I feel
A very good example of wisdom.
He
And
sat on my
so,
face like a
Tony,
dove,
you
he did.
interrupted. You waited for the wrong challenge, in other words. And you have another point. Call for that. 41 seconds. Wisdom starting now.
I have had the great pleasure recently of working with Sir Norman Wisdom. I went to Albania with him and recorded a song which got into the charts over there. Yes, it's true. Tim Rice wrote the lyrics, and I had a go at a bit of a tune that went along with it. And we went round this rather strange...
Sue Perkins challenge.
Repetition of went?
Yeah. Yes, you did went more than once.
It's not a personal thing.
She's playing the game, and she's correct, and she has 22 seconds to tell us something about wisdom starting now.
It was at precisely this point that many Albanians claimed refugee status in England, following the freak release of Sir Norman Wisdom and Tony's single there. I've not come across Sir Norman myself, but yes, I'm a buffoon.
Yes.
Sorry, lots of Sir Normans.
Yes, how do you think
you
another
can't have
way of
enough of
referring
Sir
to
Norman.
Norman and saying the little fellow, the clown? Right. Kit, a correct challenge, another point, and 9 seconds available. Wisdom, starting now.
Sir Charles Villiers, stand for that mighty church organist and composer, produced a song of wisdom. I came forth from the mouth of the Most High. I always thought it was about teeth, actually.
Right. So now we have Sue Perkins equal in the lead with Kit Hesketh-Harvey, followed by Tony Hawkes and Wendy Richard. And Sue, it's your turn to begin. And following wisdom, we now have intellectual pursuits. So tell us something about that erudite subject in this game, starting now.
Intellectual Pursuits is a game I stumbled on by chance, once chasing Germaine Greer down the Thames in a speedboat. To play this particular notion, one must find a wealthy academic and hover over them, preferably torture them, although not in a fatal sense. Once, Professor Simon Sharma, recently on television... he was on a reef at the time. In the near past.
Tony, you challenge first.
I think there was a slight hesitation.
There was a stumble like that. We interpret as hesitation, so there are 39 seconds available starting now.
I suppose people would regard going to the opera, or ballet, or theatre.
And Sue challenge.
Or
3 oars?
3 oars.
2 we let go, 3
yes,
no.
You're not allowed 3 oars, apparently.
You don't want too many oars in this show anyway.
If you're rowing after Germaine Greer, then.
Sue, you have the subject back. Intellectual Pursuits, 34 seconds available, starting now.
When playing Intellectual Pursuits, you must watch out for Camille Parlier. Really, she gets away from you like a greyhound out of a trap. She's allowed 30 seconds headway, and then I suggest hunting her down in a 4x4 with a shotgun loaded with tranquilizer
Wendy,
darts.
challenge.
2 fours?
4x4. 2 fours.
3 oars and 2 fours. I'm sorry. But Nicholas, what is 4x4? Perhaps you can tell us.
4x4 is 4 times 4
Yes.
is 4 fours are 16.
Good for you.
Listen, you can't trip me up.
You learnt that by rote, though, didn't you? You had to go.
I think you're barking up a very dark alley here because I actually studied engineering, which includes mathematics, when I was at university. So I'm not going to get simple mental arithmetic right. Anyway, I pointed out to you it's not 4x4, it's 4 times 4.
Correct. I'll give you a point.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Wendy, you had a correct challenge. She repeated the word 4. So you have 19 seconds to tell us something about Intellectual Pursuits, starting now.
The closest I've ever come to an intellectual pursuit is trying to do the Daily Telegraph crossword. It's more easy on a Monday, I've noticed, than any other one in the week. And they have special...
Tony, challenge.
There are no other Mondays in the week.
I couldn't say day, could I?
There's a rugby crowd in tonight.
So, Tony, your challenge is...
Deviation.
I think, actually, within the rules of just a minute, it's a clever one, a subtle one, but we have to give it the benefit of the doubt to Tony. I'll find a way to address it later for you, Wendy. Well, I always do. But anyway, there are 7 seconds.
You're victimising me.
Tony, 7 seconds on Intellectual Pursuits, starting now.
Some would say that playing just a minute is an intellectual pursuit, and who am I?
Kit Hesketh-Harvey.
Deviation, obviously.
Tony, this is difficult because it would depend on your intellectual standard. I mean, school children play it, and they're very good at it, some of them.
Yes.
I think he qualified it. I've justified with my decision. Tony, 2 seconds. Intellectual Pursuit starting now.
14 glove puppets crossed a...
So, a lot of points are being scored in this game, and Tony Hawks has now moved forward. He's now equal in the lead with Sue Perkins, followed only 1 point behind by Kit Hesketh-Harvey, and only 2 points behind Wendy Richard. And Wendy, it is your turn to begin. Lovely subject for you now, Robin Hood. I'm sure you can go on Robin Hood, and 60 seconds are available. Starting now.
I remember when I was a child seeing Errol Flynn playing Robin Hood. I thought he was the most handsome man I had ever seen, and Robin Hood was such a hero. Loved by the good, feared by the bad. He was there to help all the poor and sundry and to fight for justice, and he had his band of merry men all singing and leaping about in that forest. They were having a great time, but doing beneficial work.
Sue, you challenged first.
Hesitation.
There was a little hesitation, yes.
Yes, there was. I couldn't think of another word for good.
Wendy, darling, do you mind awfully?
No, not at all. Not at all. Go on.
Oh, gosh, there's sisterly love that's going on across the divide here. 33 seconds. Robin Hood is with you, Sue Perkins, starting now.
My father has always told me never trust a man in Lincoln green tights, and that is an adage I maintain to this moment in time. He swanned around the forest, somewhere I suspect in Norwich, although you will correct me, Kit, is a featureless fenland area.
She is going to correct you somewhere now.
Nowhere near Norwich.
I couldn't remember.
Began with an N.
I'm talking about Robin Hood of Norwich.
It was Nottingham, Robin Hood. The Robin Hood that everybody knows about was Nottingham, Sherwood Forest. And, Kit, you've got the subject, 18 seconds, starting now.
Friar Tuck was doing karaoke deep in the woods, very loudly indeed. They were scared they would alert the sheriff, and so they chucked him in the water, but he carried on.
Sue, challenge.
Slight hesitation, I thought.
No hesitation. Oh, come on, Sue, don't be too keen.
All right, I'm desperate. I'm sorry.
10 seconds with you, Kid. Robin Hood starting now.
Still, he carried on singing, which proves that you can lead a drunk to water, but you can't make him
Wendy
horse.
challenge.
I think you're slowing down, Kit.
Am I? It's age, darling. We all do.
Oh, no, I'm not that. I mean, I think we're getting a bit hesitational.
Do we?
No, I don't think he was getting
It's kind of
hesitational.
you to be so solicitous, my darling.
He might have sounded hesitational, but he didn't actually hesitate. So he keeps
very
the
metaphysical
subject,
point.
and there are 7 seconds with you, Kit, on Robin Hood starting now.
He visited his grandmother and stole all her jewellery. He was, in fact, Little Red Robin Hood. His mother, Mother Hood...
Oh, yeah. Kit Hesketh Harvey speaking as the whistle went, then gained that extra point, and they're moving into the final round. Sue, it's your turn to begin, and the subject is, this is a nice one, naturists. 60 seconds, starting now.
Naturists are the acceptable face, belly and buttocks of the phenomenon that is normally called flashing.
I'm sorry, that was timing. It was timing. I suddenly...
Yes, you darling. You appreciate the craft.
I'm sorry. Yes, it's done.
Sue, you and the audience are now have the subject of naturists. 52 seconds, starting now.
Naturists take them out of their natural habitat, and what you have is a man with a small, wizened chipolata in a playing field. I often see them on Brighton Beach, and there they are, huddled over the stones.
Tony's challenge.
It's suspicious how much time she spends looking at these...
Have you got a challenge within the rules of just a minute?
Deviation, but not within the rules, so...
I will be generous and give you a bonus point because the audience enjoyed your interruption, but Sue gets a point because she was interrupted, and she keeps the subject of naturists. And there are 39 seconds for her discourse on this thing that is so close to her heart, starting now.
I believe it's some ancient ritual celebrating the god Pan, or perhaps Gaia, the earth goddess, much favoured by strange post-feminists wandering around in leg warmers. I am deviating frantically, and look, repeating.
And Wendy, you challenge first.
I thought I'd help her out. She's such a nice girl.
I know, she's lovely, isn't it? And the audience love her as well. And 29 seconds, Wendy, for you on naturists.
29? I thought you said 9.
You just got to think of the bear buff and then go with it. 29 seconds, Wendy. Naturists starting now.
Naturists love to play volleyball and frolic about in fields, and if they can find a nudist beach, well, so much the better for them. You sometimes see their pictures in magazines called Health and Efficiency, but they seem to have a habit of standing...
Sue, challenge.
Double where? Representative where?
No, you keep the subject. 14 seconds, Wendy. Naturists starting now.
And they pose for pictures standing with one foot on a chair. It's the funniest thing you've ever seen. It used to be quite pornographic before things got...
Kit challenge.
Hesitation.
No, she didn't hesitate.
Did she hesitate during pornography? I'm sorry.
No, she was going with great
Wendy
style.
Richards saying pornographic.
No, she got the better.
That's not naturism you're watching, isn't it? Not when someone's is naked with their foot on a chair. Where do you get chairs in nature?
She did say, let's be fair to Wendy, she did say, these are some of the pictures you see in that magazine devoted to this particular subject.
Health and efficiency.
Yes, don't plug it too much.
I don't think it's still going,
this.
Nicholas. I mean, it was about in 1900 in Canteen. You must have seen it there.
No.
Nicholas was in it.
It was a very, because porno magazines didn't exist then, it was very, very popular and had a big sale amongst people who weren't naturists for different reasons.
How do you know?
I knew it was on the... I knew what was on the newsstands.
I'm sure.
I was looking for my Modern Boy and the Hotspur and other things.
It's as close as you can get, I guess.
And alongside the Rover was Health and Efficiency. So, what else? How else do we learn about the facts of life?
Lane. He really does.
Wendy, you still have the subject. You have 6 seconds. Naturists starting now.
Naturists eat very healthily because they can never find anyone to fry any chips. They're too frightened of being spattered by hot
Well, Wendy Richard really did have a flourish in that last round. It did very well, came rushing forward and gained an extra point, of course, for speaking as the whistle went. And in the final situation, she finished in 4th place, but only 1 point behind Tony Hawkes, and he was only 2 points behind Sue Perkins, and she was only 1 point behind Kit Hesketh Harvey.
Oh, I didn't
So, Kit, this is your winner this week. those interested in the contest, it was very close, but I know most of you are far more interested in the contributions, and they were exceptional. So we say our thank you in order as I see them there. Tony Hawkes, Sue Perkins, Kit Hesketh-Harvey, and Wendy Richard. I must thank Lottie Barker, who's done this for the first time. She did a wonderful job with the whistle. And we thank our producer, Claire Jones, who keeps us all in order when she can. And also we're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this game, and we're also indebted to this lovely audience here in the Drill Hall Arts Centre here in Bloomsbury, who've cheered us on our way. From our audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and our team, goodbye!